Emperor of the Desert. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 51. Actually I am. Area 7, outside the hospital. Is this alright? Qin Ren leaned against the wall and glanced in the direction of Kamijumaki's ward. Because she could use magic to heal, Index had recovered from the backlash caused by the destruction of the magic circle by our arcane splitter. But because of her left hand, Kamijumaki was completely immune to treatment. She had no choice but to go to the hospital. Now, Index, whose injury had healed, ran to Kamijumaki's ward to see her. As for his former best friends Arcane Splitter and Steel, although he no longer regarded them as enemies, he had no intention of getting close to them. However, Steel and Arcane Splitter's attitudes were quite calm. If it were Qin Ren, he might not be so calm. It's okay. Steel put out the cigarette. As long as she's okay. Because of his naked upper body and handsome face, Ziyu Lishen attracted the attention of female patients, nurses, and visitors who blushed and screamed. He couldn't stand it and found an excuse to slip away. Although Steel's outfit also attracted attention, it was much less than Ziyu Lishen. Sitting on the bench, Steel said, "We did protect her for a long time, but we also hurt her. We were the ones who wiped her memory with our own hands." As she said that, she, who was addicted to smoking, looked at the cigarette butt on the ground and stepped on it. The flame surged from the sole of her shoe and burned the cigarette butt. Then she took out another cigarette and lit it. It was the old woman who saved her, not us. Biting the cigarette, Steel's voice was extremely calm, with a sense of regret that a wish had been fulfilled. As for whether there was any reluctance hidden in it, Qin Ren, who was not a psychologist, could not hear it. However, Steel's mood could not be said to be too good. The British Puritan upper echelons ordered us to bring Index back. The thing that forces Index to clear her memory once a year is not a spell, but a spiritual outfit called a collar that is used to prevent Index from rebelling. No wonder we didn't notice it before. In addition, Index's awakening state is actually a spiritual outfit called Auto Secretary that is used to protect the library. It can use the contents of the 103,000 grimoires in Index's mind to perform automatic magical counterattacks. Now the collar and the Auto Secretary have been destroyed by that old woman. Steel took a deep puff of the cigarette, and the red color quickly spread halfway up from the cigarette butt. I wonder if Index's magic power will be restored because of this. If she can really restore her magic power, she who has memorized the original contents of 103,000 magic books will be the pinnacle of magicians, the magic god. She treated Qin Ren as a confidant, and after saying a lot of things, she turned her eyes to Qin Ren. "Who are you? A natural psychic, a raw stone?" "I don't believe it." Steel was very concerned about the reaction of the automatic secretary before. After asking Ziyu Lishen, he also said, "At that time, I was concentrating on Index's situation." After hearing the words of the automatic secretary, I was distracted and paid attention for a while. There was indeed a flash of powerful power. At least I'm not a magician. Qin Ren leaned against the wall, crossed his arms, and answered expressionlessly, "According to you, psychics can't use magic, right?" Although he rarely went to school, Qin Ren was also exposed to the superpower development course. According to the original setting, he couldn't use magic, and the power he obtained from the system didn't seem to be magic. It can't be considered a superpower. He doesn't need any complicated calculations to use his abilities, and he can use his abilities even when his mind is unstable. From this point of view, he is indeed very similar to the original stone. In response to Qin Ren's answer, Steel just narrowed her eyes, stared at him for more than 10 seconds, turned her head, and stood up. "That's it. Superpower." Steel stood up and threw something to him. However, Qin Ren didn't catch it. The thing that looked like a letter just fell to Qin Ren's left. Qin Ren was stunned. Steel was also stunned. "Why don't you catch it? Why should I catch it?" Steel was silent. "Help me give this thing to that old woman." After saying that, she left without looking back. Qin Ren blinked. He did notice the other party throwing something, but he didn't think of catching it. With a thought, The quicksand in his pocket surged out and picked up the envelope that fell on the ground. "So, can I read it?" Qin Ren said, controlling the quicksand to condense into the shape of a palm, twisting the envelope and waving it. "This letter will explode after you read it, so it's okay if you want to read it. It will explode." Qin Ren then remembered that still in the original book was still a bit of a tsundere, although this tsundere component was unbearable for ordinary people. It's really troublesome to be a letter deliveryman. Qin Ren, who was speechless, put his hands in his pockets, glanced at Still, who was looked at with amazement and awe by a group of men and women because of her height, and then turned and walked into the hospital. A minute later, Qin Ren came to the door of Kamijumaki's ward, but heard a conversation coming from inside. "Ha ha ha, I didn't expect you to believe it. Ha ha, old woman." A sound like being bitten by some wild beast mixed with screams made the patients and visitors who passed by him look surprised and suspicious, and a passing nurse walked over quickly. "Please make way for me." When the nurse was talking to Qin Ren and wanted him to make way, the door was opened. An index rushed out angrily, causing the nurse to wonder, "Sister?" Then the nurse walked into the ward first, and Qin Ren looked at Index running away with a step that didn't recognize any relatives, blinked, and also entered the ward. "How did it become like this?" "It's okay, I just accidentally made the child angry." So, Maki Kamiju, who was wearing a hospital gown, touched her head with her bandaged left hand and laughed dryly. The bandages on her head and hands were already loose. "I'll go get a new bandage." After the nurse said that, she turned around and left the ward quickly, leaving only Maki Kamiju and Qin Ren. "How do you feel?" Qin Ren looked at Maki Kamiju and sat on the chair next to her bed. "Who is this person?" This familiar tone made Kamiju Maki think secretly, "Thanks to the book Friends for the reward of 100 starting coins and S for the reward of 100 starting coins." Chapter 52. But I really don't know. Who is this person? An acquaintance? He must be an acquaintance, right? The doctor didn't tell me anything about this person. The only thing he got from the frog-faced doctor was about the little nun just now. Who is this blonde man? My teacher? My parent? My cousin? Or a friend? Maki Kamiju, who had lost her memory, pondered. Qin Ren was also observing Maki Kamiju's reaction. After confirming that the other party really didn't remember him and was organizing her words to try to get away with it, he also started to think about playing a prank. "Why do you look so strange? Don't you recognize me as your brother?" Qin Ren picked up the fruit knife on the table and the apple that was probably bought by Arakawa Reikigami with an expressionless face, and began to peel the skin skillfully. "Brother, this blonde man is my brother. This blonde man who looks like a foreigner no matter how you look at him is my brother." Maki Kamiju was extremely confused. "Although it's a reconstituted family, we can't compare it to biological siblings, but we still get along very peacefully. When you were 8 or 9 years old, you were still hostile to me, but after getting familiar with each other, you started to run behind me and followed me to junior high school, calling me brother, brother, and then my classmates surrounded you. At that time, you cried because of this. I really miss you when I think about it," Qin Ren said expressionlessly, in a flat tone, and handed her the peeled apple. "These things are actually true, except for the part about the reconstituted family. The rest are his and his sister's real experiences. After growing up and becoming sensible, his sister no longer sticks to him, and calls him by his name." And what he said was so true that Kamijumaki couldn't help but believe it a little. Reconstituted family? 8 or 9 years old? This is more complicated than an ordinary family. Kamijumaki was thinking about how to deal with it in a very confused mind, and temporarily kept silent to cover up the fact that he had lost his memory. "Can you bite it? Do you want me to cut it into small pieces?" Qin Ren said expressionlessly, trying not to laugh. "Brother, brother, no need," Kamijumaki said in a somewhat unnatural tone, and from the information revealed in Qin Ren's words, she barely reconstructed the role of a younger sister in a reconstituted family with a relatively good relationship. "I can't hold it back." Qin Ren felt that he couldn't hold back his laughter. However, he thought again, was he a little too much? He knew this the leader had lost his memory, but he played like this. The original smile disappeared, and Qin Ren sighed. "There is no need to pretend in front of me. Amnesia is amnesia. And I won't tell the little nun. Qin Ren's words made Kamijumaki stunned. Wait, that is to say, you are not my brother? Kamijumaki seemed to react. Then who are you? Your boyfriend. What? Boyfriend? This, your teacher. Kamijumaki had completely realized that she was being fooled. She took a big bite of the apple and glared at Qin Ren fiercely. Don't fool me anymore. Who are you? My name is Izir Qin, and I live upstairs from you. Qin Ren stopped teasing her and cut the apple into small pieces and handed them to her. As for whether you regard me as an ordinary friend, a good friend, a close friend, or a secret crush, I don't know. As he said this, he peeled an apple for himself. While peeling, he looked around. Aren't there any fruits like oranges? I don't like apples. Hey, don't be disgusted by the comfort items given to patients. Kamijumaki complained subconsciously, then breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, it's not a troublesome character like a boyfriend, otherwise I don't know what to do. Don't worry, you can't find a boyfriend, Qin Ren said expressionlessly. You are a core member of the 3 people who can't find a boyfriend in your class. What's the matter with that pathetic faction? After losing her memory, she was a little uneasy at first, and relationships with relatives and friends were even more difficult to deal with, especially the little nun just now. It seems that she has a good relationship with her in the past, and she even saved the little nun. Fortunately, I heard the retelling from Dr. Frog. By the way, Izir Qin. Just call me Izir. Qin Ren bit his apple expressionlessly. You never called me by the wrong name before. Come to think of it, Brother Pao almost always called him by the wrong name. So please be considerate of the patient who just lost his memory. Kamijumaki said helplessly, but inexplicably, she felt a little relieved. They should have a good relationship to be able to chat with each other so naturally while complaining about each other. They should have been bad friends before, right? Moreover, it can be seen at a glance that she really lost her memory. It's great that she doesn't have to pretend that she has not lost her memory in front of everyone. Thinking of this, she looked around and whispered, by the way, Izir, don't tell others about my amnesia. Kamijumaki's tone was very serious, and her eyes were fixed on Qin Ren. Just now, the little nun cried and told her about her encounter with her and various experiences, and how she fought for the little nun and the magician, and that she liked her. It would be better if she didn't call her old woman. She didn't want to see the little nun crying again. I know, Qin Ren nodded. The leader in the original book was such a good person. He liked this kind of leader very much. He liked her even more after becoming a woman. Of course, it was just a pleasing perspective. He didn't have any feelings for the leader that could be deviated into the direction of love. He lost interest when he thought that the original version of this woman with a good figure, a good personality, and a beautiful appearance was a hedgehog-headed boy. If it were an ordinary otaku, he would probably be able to accept it. For example, those FGO players who shouted social security to the welfare pictures of characters such as Altria, Minamoto no Riku, and Shuden. Since those feminizations can be accepted, let alone Tma's feminization. Speaking of which, if you look closely, the female leader is still pretty. What are you looking at? Qin Ren's gaze made Kamijumaki pull the quilt closer. I'm not looking at anything. Anyway, I don't see you as a love object, so there's no need to be horny. Qin Ren retracted his gaze and threw the remaining fruit core into the trash can. Who's in heat? Kamijumaki shouted with some dissatisfaction. Oh, this is what you often do before. Because you can't find a boyfriend, you often read girl love comics, and there are also many adult comics, so you will have bad thoughts at any time. Qin Ren recalled Kamijumaki's story and told her her previous behavior habits honestly. How is it possible? Kamijumaki was a little unbelievable, thinking that Qin Ren was lying to her. How could she be such a person before? But Qin Ren's silence made her more and more panicked. It can't be true? Kamijumaki asked again. What good does it do me to lie to you? When you go back to your place, you can look for it under the bed or in some other hidden place. I remember you bought a few copies a few days ago. Qin Ren remembered that when he was patrolling near the mall before, he went to the mall by the way, and saw the scene of the leader secretly buying comics. He almost didn't recognize him. When you went to buy it, You put on a mask and change your clothes. You are really hard-working. The facts described by Qin Ren made Kamijumaki more desperate. I was such a person before. What other strange habits did I have before? Izil, apart from these, I shouldn't have done any strange part-time jobs, right? Oh, that's right. Although you are unlucky, you seem to be quite rich. You shouldn't have any strange part-time jobs. That's great. Qin Ren's answer made her feel a little relieved, but the next sentence. But I don't know whether you have been to a gigolo parlor. Don't make people feel relieved and then say such disturbing things. But I really don't know whether you have been to a gigolo parlor. Qin Ren looked innocent. At this moment, the door was opened, and Kamijutma, carrying a school bag, entered the ward. Sister, how are you? Izil, why are you here? Don't you have to go to class? Class? What is that? Chapter 53. The butterfly wings seemed to be starting to work. After eating a few apples and handing Steele's letter to the leader, Qin Ren said goodbye to the two siblings and left the hospital. However, when he was about to leave, he met two familiar people walking out of another corridor of the hospital. Izil, why are you here? Oh, the Shurima siblings. And the little sister and the little sister. Who is the little sister? Several blue arcs of electricity appeared on the foreheads of Misaka Mikoto and Misaka Suekoto. Matsukoto-sama, don't use your abilities carelessly. Sister, this is a hospital. Almost in sync with Shirai Kuroko, Shirai Kurachi faithfully reminded as a younger brother, and then he cast his eyes on Qin Ren. Izil, it's a pleasure that you can learn to call me Shirai. But please be respectful to Misaka. Shirai Kurachi took a step back, stood behind Misaka, and stretched out his hands. Matsukoto-sama and Misaka are the third of the 7 LV5s at the top of Academy City. The Lightning Twins. Your loyal and servile appearance is very similar to the provocative supporting role in the routine novel Who Causes Trouble for the Big Brother. After complaining in his heart, Qin Ren did not trigger the mechanism, but said, what are you doing here? It's about level_upper, fantasy hand. The one who answered was not Shirai Kurachi, but Misaka, who crossed his arms and looked steady and mature. Brother Pal looks more stable and mature than Sister Pal, although he is still a little brat. Misaka Suekoto is about 1.65 meters tall, a little taller than Shirai Kuritomo, and now Qin Ren, who is 1.88 meters tall, looks down on the four people. Has the level_upper, fantasy hand, issue not been resolved yet? Qin Ren was a little confused. Although he didn't remember the time clearly, it stands to reason that after the index incident was over, the fantasy hand incident should have been resolved. No, it seems to be the other way around. In fact, he couldn't remember clearly whether the fantasy hand world was resolved first or the index collar incident was resolved first. Forget it. It doesn't matter. Since the fantasy hand incident has not been resolved yet, he might as well get involved and collect more bounties. Speaking of which, to solve the fantasy hand incident, we have to find Mr. Kama, who has changed from a sexy black silk stripping queen to a sexy black silk stripping philosophy man. Is that brewery teacher in this hospital now? Not yet. The only thing we have found out now is that level_upper, illusionary hand, is spread on the internet in the form of an audio file. It uses the principle of empathy to force the brain waves of the ability users who listen to the audio file to tune in the same frequency, so that the AIM force fields of these ability users are connected to form a network. But we still don't know why the criminal did that. Shirai Kuroko described the current situation and glanced at Misaka Suekoto. Qin Ren then remembered that unlike the original version of Misaka, the male version of Misaka Suekoto is more powerful and intervened in the illusionary hand incident without giving Shirai Kuroko any room for rebuttal. Suekoto and Mikoto-sama have joined forces, and together with Hatsuharu, they have found that the incident may be related to a person named Junsei Kama. Shirai Kuroko glanced at his brother, paused, and continued. Our 171 branch has contacted the security guards, and Hatsuharu of the 177 branch is also looking for Junsei Kama through surveillance in the branch. Isn't it almost over? Qin Ren thought with a little doubt that what would happen next was probably finding Haruki Kama. Then Mikoto defeated Haruki Kama, and because of the electric current, the AIM network controlled by Haruki Kama went out of control, giving birth to fantasy beasts, and Hatsuharu cured those patients through the treatment program, and Mikoto then killed the fantasy beasts that had no regeneration ability. I don't know if the next thing will follow the original plot in the world of Magical Index with such a large degree of magic modification. Speaking of which, there is another thing. According to the previous angle, the Dragon King's Sai probably did not hit the tree diagram designer on the Vega 1 satellite. The storm fanned by his big butterfly seems to have begun to cause a greater impact. It shouldn't affect the plan of the hanged woman, right? She shouldn't catch him, slice him up, or snap him up, right? Qin Ren was inexplicably worried. Izil, what are you thinking about? Although Qin Ren didn't have much expression, he was distracted, and Shirai Kirachi, who had been with him for a while, could still tell. Qin Ren, who came back to his senses after hearing the voice, glanced at him. Although I don't know why this person spread level_upper, fantasy hand. I don't know what other means he has to do such a thing. You should pay attention to safety and be careful of being tricked. In a more normal way of thinking, he said another paragraph, which did not involve any words related to the inside story. Hearing his words, both of them nodded. This was just a normal concern for safety. After chatting for another 2 minutes, Qin Ren reminded Qin Ren to remember the duties of the discipline committee and patrol on time, and then the two left the hospital. Qin Ren looked at their backs as they left and prepared to leave. However, at this moment, he stopped the steps he had just taken. Outside the ward of Kamijumaki, a blonde girl in a school uniform, white lace gloves and stockings looked at Kamijumaki's ward hesitantly and secretly. Is that Sutta Mikoto Sanaharu? Why did she change into a school uniform? Shouldn't Sutta Mikoto wear that floral dress, looking like she was traveling to Hawaii? The hair color seems to be a little different. As a man, like most men, he doesn't have the same sense of color as women. He doesn't have the skill to clearly identify the color of lipstick. Qin Ren was a little confused, but it seemed wrong. This school uniform is not the uniform of his school. Wait, it seems to look similar to Miru's school uniform. A girl's school with a little more hair? Isn't it Sutta Mikoto? Indeed, if you look closely, Sutta Mikoto's breasts are not that big, and compared to Sutta Mikoto, this girl is a little shorter. At this time, as if noticing his gaze, the girl turned her eyes away. Rather than gold, it is more like honey-colored long hair, a slender waist, slender arms and legs, plump breasts, and delicate facial features like a doll. The most eye-catching thing is that when she turned her head, the starry eyes engraved in her orange-yellow eyes, like an illusion. Starry eyes? Are there really such eyes in reality? Shoka Misaki. In the world of Magical Index, there is only one person who has the feature of starry eyes and is related to the leader, Shoka Misaki, the 5th-ranked psychic among the 7 level 5 people in Academy City, the pinnacle of psychological ability users, with the ability of psychological control. She can do things like memory reading, telepathy with distant objects, thought elimination, will amplification, thought reproduction, and emotion transplantation. Nicknamed Shoka Queen, apart from Kanzaki Kori, she is Qin Ren's favorite female character in Magical Index, but now she is the character Qin Ren least wants to contact, because, as a time traveler, once his memory is spied on, things will be serious. Thanks to the book friend for the reward of 100 Kidian coins. Chapter 54, Mind Failure. As for Shoka Misaki, after noticing the sight of Qin Ren, she immediately remembered Qin Ren's identity, the man who lives upstairs from the nosy Kamija siblings. Although not in the same class, he is in the same school. He is a ghost student who rarely shows up in school. Although he is very tall, he is still a minor. His ability is clustered telekinetic particles, which is the ability to manipulate a large number of particles. Some time ago, he joined the 177th branch and became a member of the discipline committee. He has communicated with Kamijumaki many times and has a good relationship with them. But there is no possibility of them being lovers. He has no expression and is a very scheming character with a violent tendency. His actions seem to deliberately imitate some characters in boys' comics. and he often says some strange words that sound like lines from comics. He often moves around in remote places and knocks out all the bad guys he encounters for no reason. He also lets go of the bad guys he encounters for no reason. He has had several suspicious exchanges with the Ambu woman who lives next door to the Kamiju siblings, because he will investigate the relationship between everyone around the Kamiju siblings in detail. When Shokumisaki saw Qin Ren's information suddenly appeared in her mind. Should I check what's going on in this person's head? She would definitely look into the heads of the people around her and all her helpers to see what kind of thoughts they have, what their codes of conduct are, and how they will manipulate their feelings and actions depending on the situation. Forget it. Without knowing how serious the other person's brain pollution is, she would not go deep into the other person's brain to investigate. Judging from this person's previous actions, he should not be a threat to the nosy woman. Just delete his memory of seeing me here. Thinking of this, Shokumisaki took out a remote control from the golden bag on her waist, raised it to Qin Ren, and pressed her finger. Huh? Qin Ren was still a little confused when he saw Shokumisaki taking out her bag, but when he saw that what she took out was a remote control, he felt something was wrong. Sand soldiers appeared. Quicksand shifted. Forbidden army wall. Qin Ren subconsciously used his ability. The magic power surged, and on his left side, in the flower bed to the left of the hospital entrance, countless grains of sand surged and condensed into a fully armed yellow sand soldier holding a spear. At the same time, in front of Qin Ren, the quicksand rose up, forming 4 yellow sand guards holding huge shields, blocking Qin Ren. Qin Ren was in the empty space formed by the yellow sand guards, and the quicksand moved. A sand yellow shield formed around him, and a pulling force came from the yellow sand soldiers, pulling him towards the yellow sand soldiers. Shokumisaki, who was stunned by the formation of 4 yellow sand guards holding huge shields, saw Qin Ren's figure flying away from behind those yellow sand guards, and instantly understood one thing: this man knew her, and he knew very well that she was psychological control, and he might even know other things about her. But according to her investigation, this man should not have the need to investigate her information. Did he know it by chance, or did he investigate her specifically? No matter which one it was, the identity of this person named Izir Qin became suspicious. It might pose a threat to Kamijumaki. Although she called that person a meddlesome woman, for Shokumisaki, she regarded the memories with Kamijumaki as the most precious memories, and Kamijumaki as her hero and spiritual support. She would never allow any threat to that person. However, do you think you can avoid my ability like this? Shokumisaki chuckled, and the smile contained no kindness. The raised remote control aimed at Qin Ren's back. As long as her sight can catch up, as long as the remote control can aim at, they can't escape. Beep. With a beep, Shokumisaki pressed the remote control and pressed the distorted cognition she refined for her own ability. However, something happened that puzzled her. It didn't work. It was not like the electromagnetic ability user like Misaka Suekoto, who had encountered a few times, who could block her ability with an electromagnetic barrier, nor was it like Kamijumaki, who directly erased the ability and disappeared. Instead, it didn't work, as if the man named Izir Qin was not a living being at all, but some kind of machine or dead object. It was a bit like the feeling when she used her ability to place her spirit on someone else. The person's true will was somewhere else, and this man was just a remotely controlled object. What was going on? Shokumisaki stood still, frowning as she looked at the gradually collapsing yellow sand guards. What does it have to do with those magicians who appeared in Academy City? Just like that man, those magicians who came from outside Academy City also had special ways to block her abilities. Is this Izir Qin also a magician? Shokumisaki frowned. Then she glanced at the students who had gathered around because of the commotion, and some of them recognized her identity, and took out another remote control from her bag. Beep. With a beep, the eyes of all the people who gathered around instantly became dazed. After putting the remote control back into her bag, Shokumisaki took a deep look at the direction where Qin Ren fled. You can't escape. After talking to herself, she turned around and left. When Kamijumaki's ward was about to leave her sight as she moved, she turned her head and took a look. Various complex emotions emerged in her starry eyes. "I'm going to go." Qin Ren, who ran to the other side of the hospital, was temporarily relieved. Although he liked the character of Shoka Misaki very much, as the object of playing with memory, he was not interested. Fortunately, he escaped from the other party's sight, otherwise, he would have been caught. He still remembered Shoka Misaki's ability clearly. Her ability can be used wherever her sight reaches. It seems that her ability is to manipulate the water and the target's brain. Her ability is too strong and too broad, so she has to refine her ability. As for the other party's remote control, Qin Ren has seen various statements in the forum and various video comment areas. Among them, the remote control of Queen Shoka is actually a restriction on her own self-rule, that is, self-suggestion. In fact, Queen Shoka only needs to confirm the target with her sight to operate the target, and the remote control can be discarded. In any case, he didn't want to run into Shoka Misaki again. However, speaking of it, Hippo's setting says that the queen affects the subject's psychology by manipulating the water and the brain. If he had exchanged Lao Sha's sand fruit ability from the system that day and was able to turn into sand, would there be no water? If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We are waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 55. Which mount is better? Whether the elemental power of the sand fruit can make Shoka Misaki's psychological control ability ineffective against him, Qin Ren, who has not actually experimented with it, does not know. On another street north of the hospital, next to a large parking lot, Qin Ren was thinking. If possible, he still wanted to contact the Shoka Queen. Unfortunately, he couldn't do that because he had too many secrets. If the elemental power of Old Sand and Sandman can't resist psychological control, then Banshee's Veil can even defend against Kane's big move, so its ability to defend against psychological systems should be good enough. How about a Mercury Sash, Mercury Knife, or a Purification? I wonder if it will work. Night Edge, or Crucible? If that doesn't work, then Ichanya will do. As he was carefully thinking about how to deal with the Shoka Queen, his eyes accidentally saw a man taking off his clothes. "Why are you taking off your clothes here?" Qin Ren was puzzled for a moment, and was about to continue thinking about how to deal with the Shoka Queen. At this moment, his eyes that had swept across the sports cars turned back and fixed on a man. Wait a minute, who is that person? That stripping man? Jun Saikama? Pouj and Kurachi didn't find Jun Saikama? Hatsuharu didn't seem to be in Jun Saikama's car? Why did Jun Saikama come here? What's here? Oh, it seems that the group of students who were used as experimental subjects to extract body crystals were kept unconscious by Kama in the hospital where Dr. Frog was. In other words, if Pouj and others hadn't stopped him, the male version of Kama would have come here directly, ready to go to the hospital and use the various abilities he obtained from the AIM network to save those children. Kama has completed the experiment through the AIM network, found a way to wake up those children, but is it really that smooth? The fantasy hand incident has attracted the attention of the upper echelons. Although the final boss, the Hanged Woman, probably has no interest in these little tricks, other Academy City high-level officials should have noticed it long ago. In the original work, the guards had already set off before Pouj and others found out who the criminal was. In other words, the guards discovered the situation earlier than Pouj and others. Should I do it myself? Qin Ren looked at the man who got out of the purple sports car and started to take off his clothes. Before he could make a decision, he heard the evacuation alarm and the voice of their class teacher, Yamazuyo Miyao. In the broadcast, all personnel near the D477 parking lot should leave immediately. The guards are taking action. Oh, Yamazuyo Miyao, I'd better go and take a look. I can check the situation and protect Yamazuyo Miyao. It would be bad if the wind fanned by his big butterfly hurt Yamazuyo Miyao. He swung his arm back with great momentum, and countless quicksand swept in, condensing into a sandboard under his feet, lifting his body and flying towards the parking lot. Speaking of which, there is a very important question. Qin Ren, who had a big imagination, began to lose his mind again. It was that the quicksand condensed into a sandboard as a means of movement, which seemed not to be impressive enough. It should be added with something fancy, such as condensing various complex and cool-looking patterns on the sandboard, which should also increase the momentum. Or, condense the sand into a mount, condense it into some kind of creature or something. For example, a huge sand snake, a huge desert eagle, or a dragon. Not the Chinese dragon of the Dragon King. Although the Chinese dragon feels mysterious and wonderful, it is not powerful enough. To put it bluntly, it has enough divinity, but not enough beastliness. It is not fierce enough. How can it be powerful if it is not fierce enough? It is better to use a Western dragon. I want a Western dragon, a big lizard with wings. For example, the 4-element dragons in the bottom lane dragon pool, ancient dragon. Yes, you can play it this way. If it doesn't work, you can also get Rift Herald, Nashor Baron, Despicable Maw, Excavator, Giant Bug, etc. Wait a minute, maybe Big Nar, Crocodile is also good, Bear, Icebird, even if you don't use the ones in LOL. The various Honkai beasts or Bai dragons in Bang 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 are also good, but imagination alone is not detailed enough. You have to find a computer to model it, and then write it down in detail, and then visualize and condense it in your mind. After thinking for more than 10 seconds, the Qin people arrived at the station. A group of security guards wearing bulletproof vests and holding blast shields have surrounded the parking lot. Kami Junshin, give up resistance. Our security guards have surrounded you. You developed level_upper, fantasy hand, and caused many people to fall into coma. You are detained for investigation on the charge of releasing dangerous goods. Huang Guanqunao stood among a group of security guards holding blast shields and spoke through a megaphone. Qin Ren's arrival was also noticed by her, but she just glanced at Qin Ren and didn't say hello at this time. Qin Ren looked at this scene and shook his head secretly in his heart. Although Mr. Kama has no record of developing superpowers and does not look like a superpower user, the security guards also brought various equipment, which actually means that they are very serious. But they did not expect that although Mr. Kama's purpose was to network the brain for cloud computing, through the AIM network established, Mr. Kama has also obtained the abilities of those who have heard of the fantasy hand. In other words, a person with multiple abilities. If used well, LV5 may also fall into his hands. To deal with such a person with special abilities, such equipment is still not enough. As expected, after slowly putting on his clothes, Junsai Kama looked at the guards expressionlessly. Only when the higher-ups give orders can you become so fast. It would be great if you could be as fast as this during the rescue. The next moment, Qin Ren saw the guards standing at the front suddenly float in the air, as if they were caught by something, and then they hit the other guards around them. Just like playing bowling, the other guards were knocked over with screams. Even if some guards noticed the situation in time and raised their blast shields to resist, when they raised their shields, the shields also suddenly flew up and slipped out of their hands, causing them to be hit directly by the flying guards. It's actually a person with special abilities, and a telekinetic one. Yamakawa Aio took a step back, allowing the flying guard to hit the police car and avoid the attack. You are allowed to use live ammunition. Yamazu Aio's voice rang out among the guards. All the guards holding guns opened the safety device, aimed their guns at Junsai Kama, and pulled the trigger. Bang, 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 accompanied by the flying of the shell casing. The muzzle sprayed out hot bullets. You want to use live ammunition? Then I won't be polite either. Junsai Kama's voice and ability were released together. In front of her, the concrete floor broke as if it was cut by a sharp weapon. A square, thick concrete slab stood up and blocked the bullet. Go, she muttered to herself in her heart, and the concrete slab flew out directly and hit the guard, and the direction was Yamazu Aio who was commanding the operation. Chapter 56, Showmanship, Not Existing. Qin Ren had already noticed this situation. With a strong downward swing of his arm, the quicksand surged out from the ground in front of Huang Guanqunao, condensing into the yellow sand. Imperial guards holding giant shields. At the moment of condensation, they raised their giant shields and rushed forward fearlessly. With amazing momentum, They collided with the huge concrete slab that had already arrived in front of the Yellow Sand Imperial Guards. Boom! The concrete slab was directly smashed under the impact of the Yellow Sand Imperial Guards, and the concrete slab that was broken into 6 or 7 pieces was blown in the direction it came from, and flew back in an arc. Qin Ren watched this scene expressionlessly. In public, he had to join the battle as a pincer attack on Mdu. In private, he liked the character of Huang Guanqunao. By the way, I wonder if I can get a lot of yellow sand gold coins by defeating Kama Junshin, although he probably can't do it. Facing the omnipotence of this all-rounder, reason told him that he, a student with only one subject, couldn't do it. For example, now, he couldn't do that thing. Seeing the concrete stone flying back, Kama Junshin's expression remained unchanged and he stretched out his palm. An invisible barrier appeared in front of him, blocking the concrete stone. The bullets fired by other guards were also blocked by the invisible force, forming a faint circular surface. Telekinetic barrier, or air solidification, or momentum reflection? Qin Ren watched this scene and thought about the abilities that the other party might use. Although there are few powerful vector operations like accelerator, there are still many lower-level abilities of vector operations. Kama Junshin has too many abilities that can be used to counter his skills. Qin Ren's current ability strength is not strong, all of which are the lowest level G, and his skills are only the same as Zar. It goes without saying how weak Ezra was in the early stage. Moreover, he doesn't even have a Doran's ring. At least give him a Doran's ring or something. Teacher Huang Quanquin, I don't think I can deal with this guy. Qin Ren put his hands in his pockets and said expressionlessly, although the fight has not started yet, he knows very well that he can't beat Kama Junshin who has hundreds or thousands of abilities. Show operation? If you have the ability, why don't you try to show off your skills at level 12 at level 6? Moreover, it's okay in the game, but in the real world, those who risk their lives to show off their skills are either crazy or stupid. Whoever wants to go can go, but he won't go anyway. I know. Yamazu Aio didn't say anything like why don't you go and try it, just nodded. Although the ability shown by Kimura Junsai is not at level 5, it is definitely at level 4. This kind of strength requires special measures and weapons to deal with ability users. Moreover, as a teacher, she doesn't want to let children participate. Qin Ren didn't know that he was treated as a child. Otherwise, he would definitely say that according to his actual age, Yamazu would just be holding a gold brick. What should we do now? Qin Ren asked for her opinion. According to the original work, it was Misaka Mikoto who came to fight alone, and Kimura Haruo was careless and was hugged by Misaka Mikoto from behind. She used 100,000 volts at 0 distance, and the effect was outstanding, causing Kimura Haruo to fall to the ground. Now Brother hasn't arrived yet. A more effective method is to ask the leader to come over. The leader is in the hospital on the next street. If a fantasy beast appears, it can be easily dealt with. At this time, Kama Junshin glanced at Qin Ren and the surrounding guards, then raised his hand and waved. The blast shields that fell on the ground all flew up and hit the guards under his action. Bang, bang, bang. Amid screams, except for Huang Quanquinao, all other guards were knocked down by the blast shields, and the blast shields flying towards Qin Ren and Huang Quanquinao. Sand soldiers appeared. The yellow sand soldiers condensed from the yellow sand drilled out of the ground, swung the yellow sand spears vigorously, and smashed the 2 blast shields away. With the current mana, continuous use of the Forbidden Army wall will soon consume all the mana. Although the recovery is fast, it is better to use it sparingly. Staring at the sand piles of the yellow sand soldiers condensed by Qin Ren and the yellow sand Imperial Army that had already collapsed, Junshin Kama's voice with insufficient breath sounded, "So, I will let them recover later." After calculating the results, if the request to use the tree diagram designer had not been rejected dozens of times, I would not want to use this method. Qin Ren did not doubt his words. Although the tree diagram designer did not seem to be killed by the Dragon King Sai released by Index, Kama's opponent was the Kihara clan. The Kihara clan is the dark brain of Academy City. Kama had many obstacles in saving those children. If it were not for the help of the underworld soul chaser, that is, Dr. Frog, Kama would have failed long ago. Even if the tree diagram designer was not destroyed, he would not be able to get permission to use it. However, although Yamakawa Aio knew some things about the dark side of Academy City, she did not understand the inside story, and she would not easily believe the other party's reasons. Without answering Jun Shinkama first, she whispered to Qin Ren, "Izil, find a chance to leave first, I'll leave this to you." However, she saw Qin Ren stretched out his right hand and then clenched it tightly. With a slight sound, Yamazu Aio and Kama Junsheng seemed to have noticed and turned their eyes to the back of Qin Ren, a 3-meter-high tower with an inverted triangle base covered with strange patterns condensed, and a huge disc floated on the base. "What is this?" Kama Junsheng and Yamazu Aio both showed puzzled expressions. Qin Ren looked at Yamazu Aio's expression and didn't explain anything. He just said, "Teacher Yamazu, there's nothing for us to do next." Qin Ren, who was about to say something, paused, because from the view of the sun disk, he saw the scene of Shirai Kurachi, who was riding as a mount, and Misaka Suekoto using space ability to quickly approach on the street next door. Before he finished speaking, he turned his head and turned his sight to the left. Click, click, with 2 light sounds, Pouch, Pouji and Shirai brothers and sisters suddenly appeared in the air a few dozen meters away from their left and half a meter high. The 4 of them landed on the ground. "Sister Sukin, the guard seems to have been defeated." Sister, now, leave it to us to deal with it next." Misaka Sukin and Misaka Mikan twisted their wrists and stared at Kama Junsheng and said in unison, "I didn't expect the criminal to be you." Lightning winds, this is trouble. Qin Ren, who was listening to this, couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. Doesn't it mean that he plus the guard is not a trouble? He was underestimated. However, he is not the brainless little white male protagonist when online literature just emerged more than 10 years ago. His inferiority complex made him shout and fight when he was looked at. Besides, is there anything wrong with LV5 not taking LV3 seriously? The most important thing is that people are not pointing at his forehead and scolding "you are a waste." It is not certain whether it is a mockery. If he gets angry like this, how inferior must he be? As long as you have a little bit of brains, it is normal not to have any reaction at this time. However, whether it is a mockery or not is not important. What is important is Master's sister. Why are you here too? Thanks to the book friend PS Maniac for the reward of 1000 Kidian coins. And I don't know how I can do it for the reward of 100 Kidian coins. Chapter 57. Are you on a threesome date? Through the diffuse vision of the sun disk on the sand tower, Qin Ren discovered that Kamijumaki was approaching, and Steel and Orikari Arakami were also there. Wait, that jerk Tsuchimikado was also there. Through the sun disk, Qin Ren's sight was fixed on a building with more than 50 floors. 500 meters away from the west side of the parking lot, on the third window on the left side of the second floor from top to bottom, Tsuchimikado Sanaharu, who was leaning against the window, was tilting his head and observing the direction of the parking lot from the edge. Beside her, Orikari Arakami and Steel also focused their sights on Kamijumaki, who was approaching the parking lot. At this time, Steel suddenly frowned and looked around. Orikari Arakami also put his hand on the hilt of the knife, his face gloomy. "What's wrong, Steel, brother Orikato?" Tsuchimikado Motohara saw the reactions of the two and couldn't help but get nervous, and the clear eyes under the sunglasses narrowed slightly. "I felt the gaze," Steel whispered, and the cigarette hanging on her mouth swayed slightly as her voice sounded. "Sight, magic, or surveillance?" Tsuchimikado Sanaharu looked around, searching for possible surveillance or magic. Because of the supernatural power course she had taken, she couldn't use magic easily, and even her sensitivity to magic power decreased. She didn't think that Orikawa and Steel were wrong. Brother Orikawa was a saint with only 20 in the world, and Steel's magic talent was not much inferior to her own a few years ago. At this time, she was being spied on, which might be a magician who had set his sights on Index. "I'll use the divination circle to reverse the calculation." Tsuchimikado took out a palm-sized colored paper book like a label-colored paper from his pocket and prepared to start the magic. At this time, Orikawa suddenly said, "No need, Tsuchimikado, it's an acquaintance." "An acquaintance?" Orikawa pointed to the window. The Mikado Sanaharu turned his gaze to the window. On the window, sand from nowhere condensed into a line of words in English. The Mikado, what are you doing here? A threesome date? English. Seeing this line of words, the Mikado Sanaharu couldn't help but raise his eyebrows, and then cast his eyes to the parking lot. Sure enough, the blond man with his hands in his pockets was looking towards their location. How did you find out? The Mikado Sanaharu silently glanced at the colored paper in his hand. If he wanted to reversely calculate the direction and distance of the source of magic power, he needed to set up a magic circle, but if he just wanted to detect whether there was a magic reaction to the spell, he only needed these special colored papers. But there was no reaction at all. A natural esper. Is this really only level 3? The measurement of Academy City is too outdated. While she was thinking, she saw the sand on the window deform again. Don't you want to answer? It seems that I disturbed your date. Sorry for disturbing you. English. The next moment, the sand on the windowsill dissipated and disappeared, and the three people also noticed that Qin Ren turned his gaze back. The three looked at each other in silence. Qin Ren certainly did not do so because he felt that he had disturbed the three, but because the duration of the sun disk had expired. 1 minute is still a little short. If he did not charge the sand tower, then after 1 minute, the sun disk on the sand tower would collapse. If he wanted to maintain it, he would need to continue charging, but his mana did not allow him to do so. The previous events and the attitudes of Zihuo Lishen, Tier and others also made him realize that his strength seemed to be overestimated by these people. His actions just now also increased his momentum. There are only 3 seconds left. Throwing these thoughts aside and feeling the duration of the sand tower, Qin Ren swung his arm vigorously, and the entire sand tower, along with the sun disk on top, instantly collapsed into countless gravel and fell to the ground. Compared to waiting for its own time to end, he took the initiative to cancel it, which looked more imposing, and it could prevent others from knowing that the sand tower had a duration. After taking a look at Shirai Kuritoshi and Misaka Suekatsu who were talking to Kamajunsai, Qin Ren put his hands back in his pockets, and the quicksand rushed towards Yamazukawa. Teacher Yamazukawa, LV5 has arrived, so we can leave, right? Looking at the quicksand rushing towards her, Yamazukawa Aio sighed. It's time to leave. But why do you have to use sand to carry me? Because it's troublesome to carry me with hands, and Teacher Yamazukawa, you're a little heavy. Hearing this, Yamazukawa Aio raised her eyebrows. Izil, do you know what the taboos for women are? Wait, Qin Ren said expressionlessly in a puzzled tone. Put me down, said Aizumikawa, who was lifted up by Qin Ren with sand. After Qin Ren put her down, she walked to a security guard who was knocked unconscious and helped him up, with a helpless expression on her face. If you have a girlfriend, she will definitely be mad at you. That's because she is not mature enough. Qin Ren walked slowly, and also lifted up a security guard who looked seriously injured with quicksand, and walked behind Misaka Suekoto and Shirai Kuritoshi. A mature enough woman will not be angry about such words. Do you mean I'm not mature enough? So you are angry? Teacher Yuzumikawa, mature women will not be angry about such things. The brother and sister Shirai Kuritoshi and Shirai Kuroko looked at the scene of the two people walking and talking with a frown on their faces. Can't you be serious in this kind of occasion? Qin Ren and Yuzumikawa turned their heads at the same time, with the electric brother and sister, a level 5 superpower user, here. What can we say about the result? You are really relieved, but Lord Suekoto and Lady Misaka will definitely be able to solve this matter. When Shirai Kuritoshi was complaining about Qin Ren and Yamikawa Aio, Misaka Suekoto's serious voice rang out. Kuritoshi, you take the injured guards away from here first. I may not have time to take care of them later. Misaka Mikoto also stared at Kamajunsai standing opposite with a serious expression. The opponent has too many abilities. She and her brother have to subdue each other without killing each other, so they have no extra energy to take care of the surroundings, and those guards may be affected. However, it should be much easier for the two siblings to join forces. I understand. As a loyal younger brother, Shirai Kuritoshi nodded, and immediately walked to a guard, grabbed his limbs and used his ability. And Shirai Kuroko hesitated and stared at the back of Misaka Mikoto for 2 meters before imitating his brother's actions and began to transport the wounded. Qin Ren, who had left the parking lot for nearly 200 meters, had just put down the guards with Yamakawa Aio when he saw the figures of Shirai Kurachi and Shirai Kuroko appear next to him one after another and put down a guard. Izil, come with me to carry the wounded. I'm doing it. Qin Ren glanced at him. His current ability can only carry heavy objects under 150 kilograms. Because of this, he himself can't imitate Talia's floating stone rushing to move the condensed sandboard. Hurry up. Shirai Kurachi didn't say much, and used his ability again, and he and Shirai Kuroko disappeared from the spot one after another. Qin Ren looked at Yamakawa Aio. Yamakawa teacher, the wounded will be left to you. After saying that, he turned back and went to carry the wounded with the Shirai brothers and sisters. Glancing at the Shirai siblings and Qin Ren who were going back and forth in the parking lot, Kamen Junsai put his left hand in the pocket of his white coat, and touched his head with his right hand bent. I've already said that after the calculation results come out, I will restore them to their original state. No one will get hurt. No need to explain. Misaka Suekoto clenched her fists with a smile on her lips. Just wait for me to knock you down. Misaka Mikoto next to her covered her face with a helpless look. What he said made Qin Ren, who was carrying the wounded, look sideways. The personalities of the male version of Poujin Pouji are really different. Chapter 58 The middle school boy Misaka Suekin. Teacher Kama, you can't succeed. Qin Ren was watching Junshin Kama as he used quicksand to send the fallen guards away from the scene one by one, and the guards who fell to the ground didn't have any fatal injuries. At this time, the other party didn't take any action at all, as if waiting for them to send people away from the scene. Or did they give up resistance? He looked around, and Qin Ren's magic power surged. Countless quicksands erected a sand tower in a room next to the parking lot. The sun disk with mysterious patterns floated up. Qin Ren's vision instantly covered the area with a radius of 1,000 meters centered on the sun disk. A large number of guards have surrounded the parking lot. Moreover, there is a group of heavy equipment with more exaggerated equipment and unknown functions. Qin Ren instantly remembered the name of an Anbu organization. DA. So that's it. The Anbu have all come out. Are the Anbu wearing guard uniforms? DA? Qin Ren instantly understood the situation. Junshin Kama had discovered the guards through some kind of enhanced vision or other perception abilities. As for why he had an impression of the Anbu organization that appeared in this niche comic Science Accelerator, it was because in this comic, there appeared words such as Dao, Kaiamkai, Shun Emperor, Taddy, Chaos and so on, which were related to China no matter how they sounded. Therefore, this DA organization was also remembered by Qin Ren. This Anbu organization called DA is actually also composed of guards composed of teachers from Academy City, but it is an extreme form of guards, insisting on twisted justice, and has equipment beyond ordinary guards. If I am right, those guards with strange equipment are DA. However, these people seemed to have received some orders and just stayed where they were without taking any action. Is it the upper echelons of Academy City, the council, or A-lister? Qin Ren thought about it, but he couldn't do anything. He is now a little worried that his actions will be removed by the hanged girl as an obstacle to the plan. But it shouldn't be. A-lister in the original work is an extremely awesome character. There is a saying that no matter which direction things develop, for A-lister, his plan goes smoothly. For example, in the previous Index incident, whether Index was saved or not, whether the tree diagram designer was destroyed or not, all the results that occurred afterwards were within A-lister's plan. There is a sentence that impressed him about A-lister's evaluation: his plan is more than changes. To put it simply, everything is calculated. No matter how weird the result is, it is within his calculation. There is nothing strange about this. A-lister himself is a collection of infinite possibilities. According to the calculation of the tree diagram designer, there are a total of 1 billion possibilities. Anyway, there are many A-lister Crowleys existing at the same time. That is a man who dares to calculate the devil and succeeds. I have been very careful and have done almost nothing. I basically don't interfere in such a big thing. With such a behavior pattern, It is impossible to interfere with the other party's plan. That is more than changes. When you are not capable enough, don't interfere with other things casually. Do what you are capable of. Don't always think about intervening in things beyond your ability. This is Qin Ren's life creed. Qin Ren thought about this while transporting the last few guards. The battle between the Misaka brothers and sisters and Kama Junsheng has already begun. If possible, I don't want to fight with the children. Although it is useless to fight. His eyes flashed with a light, and the traces of the guards hiding around the parking lot were completely reflected in his eyes. Hey, LV5, inadvertently using visual enhancement and perspective ability. Together, what do you think you will see? Kama Junsheng's weak voice echoed. Who knows? Countless blue arcs of electricity jumped around the strong-willed Misaka Suekoto. No matter what you see, you will lose to me. As soon as the voice fell, Misaka Mikoto's hand had already shot out crackling lightning, leaping into a straight line, and shot towards Kama Junsheng. Lightning spear. Although the speed of lightning cannot be defended in time, the small movements of the person using the ability before using it are not difficult to detect. At least, for Junsei Kama, who has obtained the brain computing power of more than 10,000 students and the computing power is comparable to level 5, it is not difficult to detect. What's more, among the abilities Junsei Kama has obtained, there are various abilities that can enhance perception. What a brilliant electric current, but no matter how bright the lightning is, it still can't illuminate the scenery in the dark. As the voice sounded, the electric current that merged into a straight line and resembled a spear collapsed and refracted in front of Junsei Kama, as if there was an invisible spherical cover around his body. The spherical telekinetic barrier blocked the lightning spear. What nonsense are you talking about? You're so old, and you haven't graduated from Chunibana yet. Misaka Suekoto gritted his teeth, and separated from Misaka Mikoto on both sides, and launched an attack from the other direction, with arcs of electricity leaping out of his white teeth. Lightning snake. With a rather imposing shout, the leaping and twisting arcs of electricity gathered together, and flew towards Kama Junsei in the form of a venomous snake, carrying lightning. Compared to me, your behavior of deliberately shouting out the names of moves like in a boy's manga is more Chunibana, right? And you gave it such a weird name. However, Kama Junsei just stretched out his right hand and clenched it hard, and the flying lightning snake seemed to be disturbed by some force. Its shape twisted and deformed, and dissipated into arcs in the sound, and dissipated into the air. What's it called? What kind of boyhood books do boys of this age like to read? No, it's boyhood paintings, boyhood comics. Kama Junsei was looking for the right words. On the Qin Ren side, Shirai Kirachi, who had already transported all the guards, looked at the fight between the two and couldn't help but cover his face. Matsukoto-sama reads too many boys' comics. Qin Ren on the side couldn't help but ask, what boys' comics? Ah, I don't remember clearly, but Matsukoto-sama likes to read boys' comics, especially a character named Jita in a comic. What? Jita? Is there really such a thing? Misaka likes Squatta, and Pouge likes Jita? Qin Ren couldn't help but be stunned. When Suekoto-sama is free, she likes to study various ways to release electricity, and then she gives them names one by one, such as lightning snake, lightning spear, iron sand sword, and frog tree roost when moving on the wall by the magnetic force of electric current. What kind of tree does the frog live in? Or is it a quack tree? Shirai Kirachi is not worried that Misaka Suekoto will lose. He glanced at his sister who looked worried, and after Qin Ren asked, he began to talk about Misaka Suekoto's unfinished second-year history. Let's call it the gecko wall walking skill. The alias of the gecko wall walking skill is the snake-shaped skill, or the toad wall walking skill. You can practice it with a certain blonde village chief in the next village in Mayabaka Mountain. Qin Ren complained in his heart, although it is indeed in line with the second-year thinking that a boy of this age should have, but, in order to try to get rid of the sense of disharmony in his heart, Qin Ren tried hard to think, but he couldn't find a reason. Forget it, Brother Pao, as long as you are happy. Chapter 59. Who do you think will win? In fact, it is reasonable that girls like all kinds of cute objects and clothing decorations that are relatively young, and boys also like things that are second-rate. It is actually quite reasonable, if a boy likes cute pink pajamas and all kinds of things that only little girls like. It is a bit weird. Qin Ren, who finally found a reason for Pouch's second-rate, sat with the Shurima siblings to observe the battle. Speaking of which, although Shurima Kuroko was also stable and reliable, he will become perverted when he meets Pouch. But there are also differences from the original. Shurima Kuroko, seen in Torikokin, does not want Pouch to participate in the affairs of the discipline committee, but in this magically modified world of Torumajutsu no Index, Shurima Kuroko basically discusses everything with Misaka Suekoto and handles it together. He trusts Misaka Suekoto's ability very much, whether it is strength or other things. Sitting aside like a spectator and watching Misaka Suekoto fight like this is probably impossible in the original. You really trust that little brother who discharges electricity? After looking at Shurima Kuroko and then at Shurima Kurachi, Qin Ren put his left hand in his pocket and gently waved his right hand. The dust that spread in the sky due to the fight between the two and flew in their direction rushed to both sides like soldiers who received orders. The dust in the sky was easily swept away. Shurima Kurachi, who saw this scene, couldn't help but look sideways. Your ability is really useful. Wild flowers are more fragrant than domestic flowers. Qin Ren looked at Misaka Suekoto, who shouted out various middle school move names and used electric current and magnetism to fight with Kamen Junsai with an unchanged expression, and said, "I wonder how many people envy your brother and sister's ability teleport. Space movement. Speaking of which, space movement flash. I don't know when I can get the flash skill from the exchange column. Although I don't think my luck will be very good, I can still have expectations." Hearing what Qin Ren said, Shurima Kurachi blinked his eyes. Really? Lady Mikoto said the same thing. As he spoke, he grabbed a piece of gravel beside him, and the calculation in his brain, which had become a habit, started to work, and the gravel disappeared from his hand in an instant. In the parking lot, Kama Junsai, who was fighting with Misaka Suekoto, used the ability of air users to compress the air, forming an air explosion next to Misaka Suekoto to force him back. He used several similar spatial abilities obtained from 10,000 students to work, and instantly noticed the operation of Shurima Kurachi's ability and started to interfere. A gleam of light flashed in his eyes, and the stone that should have been embedded directly in his finger was interfered with and landed a few meters away from him. TSK, it's really a foul to be able to use the hitting ability at the same time. Shurima Kurachi bit his finger. I wanted to sneak attack and make him make a mistake. In his words, there was no psychological burden at all for sneak attacks. Qin Ren was silent and looked at Shurima Kuroko. Kuroko shouldn't be so insidious, right? At this time, he noticed that his hands were holding the hem of his skirt, and from under the skirt were metal sticks as thick as pencils. Okay, just ignore what I said. But this idea is totally fine. If it can make the battle easier, any means are fine. At least that's what Qin Ren thought. Junko Kama has quite a lot of abilities that he can use. Qin Ren didn't complain out loud, but only analyzed the use of Junsuke Kama's abilities. The abilities he can use are very comprehensive. If the little brother who discharges electricity doesn't try to use more powerful attacks, it will have no effect on Junsuke Kama. Shurima Kurachi nodded. Well, based on the abilities of those who have used the fantasy hand as we know it so far, Junsuke Kama still has a lot of abilities that he hasn't used, such as the various abilities of the optical manipulation system, and the psychological manipulation system, which can directly hinder the cognition in the brain. Although the psychological manipulation system is useless to Lady Suekoto, Lady Suekoto and Lady Mikoto don't have a direct way to detect the ability of the optical manipulation system, so they can only use large-scale discharges. Junko Kama now has too many abilities, and he is not familiar with the combination of abilities, and he doesn't have much combat experience. If he is given some more time to familiarize himself with his current abilities, it will be difficult to deal with him. Qin Ren said as he stared at Junsuke Kama, who condensed a lightsaber in his hand and blocked the attack that Misaka Suekoto fired at the surrounding metal objects as cannonballs. I agree, Suekoto-sama needs to use a powerful attack of level 5 as soon as possible to directly break the opponent's defense. Both sides are considering not to hurt each other's name, but Kamijunsai's power control should be at the level of as long as he doesn't kill Suekoto-sama and Mikoto-sama, and the power that Suekoto-sama is using now is even weaker than Kamijunsai's ability, only level 4. Shirai Kuroko analyzed calmly. If this situation continues, the result is likely that Onsama and the others will not be able to block the attack, and will be injured by Kamijunsai's ability and lose the ability to fight. Shirai Kuroko shook his head. Judging from the current situation, although the Misaka brothers and sisters have comprehensive abilities, their comprehensiveness is not worth mentioning in front of the almost omnipotent Kamijunsai. In terms of defense, they are undoubtedly inferior to Kamijunsai. The two of them joined forces, but if they did not increase the power of the attack, it would actually not make much sense. Now, there are only two chances for the Discharge brothers and sisters to win. One is to maintain the current power, bypass Kamijunsai's defense in some way, and hit him directly. The other is to use a LV5 level move to directly break the defense and cause damage to Kamijunsai. Qin Ren said. Shirai Kurachi stroked his beardless chin. Kamijunsai used what seems to be telekinetic barrier, atmosphere solidification, and the same electromagnetic ability before. I think it is unlikely to bypass Kamijunsai's defense. If Master Sukin wants to win, he can only. He shook his head, thinking that Kamijunsai's defense could not be bypassed, and Qin Ren didn't know how the next development would be. According to the original plot, Misaka Mikoto didn't use her full strength when fighting Kama Haruki, but Misaka Mikoto didn't really defeat Kama Haruki. Instead, after Kama Haruki thought he had knocked Misaka Mikoto down, he was careless and turned away without finishing off the opponent. He was hugged from behind and was hit with 100,000 volts at close range. Now it seems unlikely that Junsai Kama will make the same mistake as in the original book. So, brother and sister Pao can only use strong attacks to break the shield. At this moment, Junsai Kama waved his arm, probably with the ability of electromagnetic or telekinesis, and threw away the lightning snake condensed by Misaka Suekoto with the arc, and then sighed deeply. Well, the game is over. Although I don't want to admit it, it's time to end it. His words made the Misaka brothers and sisters alert. Is he going to use a big move? However, Junsai Kama just turned his head and swept his eyes across the parking lot, pausing for a moment on the equipment next to the DA group. The device. Are they ready to start? Thinking in his heart, Junsai Kama took a step back slightly, leaned on the hood of the sports car, and used the ability of electromagnetics to operate the current on the computer on the sports car behind him. Countless data rushed on the narrow screen, and rows of data were read and written. There will be a chance later. When I get out of it, I will definitely succeed, and I will definitely be able to save those children. Thanks to the book friend for the reward of 1,000 Kidian coins. Chapter 60. Wait a minute. There's something wrong with the script. As the fifth level of the pinnacle of electrical and magnetic superpowers, the Misaka siblings could clearly feel what Kamijunsai was doing. No matter what the other party was doing, the simplest strategy was to prevent him from continuing. A violent electric current jumped up from Misaka's body. Seeing his action, Kamijunsai just raised his eyelids slightly. Do you know? On my computer, I set a program that will destroy all data if it is not started in sequence. Now, there is no data in my computer. What do you want to say? Misaka was relatively calm, frowning slightly, and Misaka Susaki also stopped moving, and the violent current weakened slightly. The treatment program of Fantasy Misaka is in my body, and there is only one copy. Do you know what this means? Kamijunsai took out a data storage chip similar to a memory card from the pocket of his white coat with his right hand. What do you think will happen if we apply an electric current to this thing? Misaka Suekoto's face darkened. How despicable. Is this despicable? A smile appeared on Kamijunsai's tired face. The young master who grew up in a greenhouse has really never seen the real darkness. As he said that, he threw the chip storing the data to Misaka Mikoto. What? Although she didn't know if what the other party said was true, Misaka Mikoto didn't dare to believe it. What if this thing was really the only treatment program for Fantasy Hand? Then, while being alert to the possible attack of Kama Junsai, she reached out to catch it. Misaka Suekoto next to her was also on guard. However, the expected attack did not come, and Misaka Mikoto successfully caught the chip. There is also an audio clip inside. After people who have used the Fantasy Hand listen to this audio clip, they will be able to recover. What? The Misaka siblings looked at each other in disbelief. Why would I give up? As if he had expected what he was going to say, Kama Junshin yawned and half leaned on the sports car. I haven't given up yet. I won't give up before saving those children. Save? What are you talking about? Nothing. Kama Junshin opened his eyes, turned his gaze to the security guard, and raised his hands. Hey, security guard, I have decided to surrender. His words shocked everyone. No one knew why Kama Junshin suddenly gave up resistance. Even Qin Ren did the same. What's going on? He almost couldn't suppress his expression. Qin Ren was a little dazed as he watched Yamakawa Aio and other security guards walk towards Kama Junshin, and watched Shirai Kuritoshi use his ability to move to Misaka Suekoto's side. He watched a security guard handcuff Kama Junshin under the protection of other security guards. Junsai Kama didn't resist at all, and just let the guards put handcuffs on him. Why did Junsai Kama suddenly surrender? Wait, what about the plot where the fantasy beast was released after the electrotherapy? Where is the fantasy beast? Where is the fantasy beast that began the original book? Where did it go? Then, Junsai Kama was taken to the car and taken away by the guards. Is the fantasy beast over? What about the plot where he got a lot of bounties by killing the fantasy beast? Even if he couldn't beat the fantasy beast, there should be a plot where he got some bounties by assisting, right? It ended like this. He didn't do anything. Why is the plot different from the original? Shouldn't it be like the protagonists in those fanfictions, who did all kinds of things, but the plot still followed the timeline of the original book, and followed the schedule without missing a single plot? Why is the change so big? His butterfly wings can't be that big, right? Until the guard's car drove away, Qin Ren still didn't fully react. It was not until the Misaka siblings and the Shirai siblings came towards him that he seemed to wake up. He walked over and asked Pouch, "Brother Discharge, what happened?" Misaka Suekoto was also dazed. She looked at the chip in her sister's hand. "I don't know either." He suddenly took out this thing and said it was a level_upper, fantasy hand, treatment procedure. He said something like, "I will definitely save the children," and then raised his hands in surrender. Save the children? Is there some hidden story? Shirai Kurachi narrowed his eyes, his face full of thought. Why is that? Why is this happening? Obviously. Wait a minute, Shirai Kurachi, how come you are also a Shiraiologist? Qin Ren raised his eyebrows. Apart from these words, did he do anything strange? What else? Misaka Mikoto looked at the storage chip in her palm, thinking about what happened just now. It seems nothing special on the other side. In the car escorting Junshin Kama, the guards did not dare to slack off at all, and they kept an eye on Junshin Kama sitting in the back car without relaxing for a moment. At this time, they suddenly found that Junshin Kama's eyes were always paying attention to the outside of the car. Could it be that there are accomplices preparing to rescue? A guard with a bigger imagination thought, and then told his guess to others. Others did not ignore this possibility, and they kept a closer eye on Junshin Kama in the car in the center. The other security vehicles surrounded the vehicle in the middle and formed a formation to move forward. At this time, they suddenly found a smile on Junshin Kama's face. This smile made them more alert along the way, but until they arrived at the prison and escorted Junshin Kama in, nothing happened, leaving the guards who were on full alert confused. At the same time, they were leaving the parking lot and passing by the hospital. Maki Kamijo, who had come over to see the incident, walked back after finding out that the incident was over. When he returned to the door, he saw a frog-faced doctor standing there motionless with a puzzled expression. "Doctor, what are you doing here?" Maki Kamijo greeted him and walked over. She noticed that in the frog-faced doctor's hand, there was a strange, palm-sized black square. The remaining knowledge memory that did not disappear with the memory of the incident told her that this thing should be a computer hard drive. Why would the doctor hold a computer hard drive? After hearing her voice, the soul chaser stuffed the thing into the pocket of his white coat and smiled at her. How did you get out? Although your physical fitness is very good, you should rest in bed in your current condition. I can't stay in the ward. Hearing this, Maki Kamijo laughed dryly and touched his head. I came out to find my way. This reason was not false. Before she found the security guard's vehicle, she did walk out of the hospital with the idea of finding her way. Really? You are really serious about this for the sake of that child? Let's leave it at that for now. I still have some things to do. The soul chaser smiled, then said goodbye to Kamijumaki and walked into the hospital. Oh, bye. Kamijumaki nodded blankly. Thanks to the book friend for the 100 starting coins reward. Chapter 61. I swear I really didn't mean it. In the evening, Qin Ren witnessed the four Misaka brothers and sisters handing over the treatment program to Yamazukawa Aio, and with the assistance of Yamazukawa Aio, they experimentally played the treatment audio to several comatose patients. After watching them wake up, Qin Ren finally believed that the matter of the fantasy hand seemed to be over. July 25th, 17:31, Qin Ren opened his mobile phone and looked at the time displayed on the screen. He didn't remember the exact time when the incident in Magical Index happened, and he was a little confused. What should he do now? It seems that he can only go to kill monsters. At this time, the Misaka siblings walked out of the hospital and looked at Qin Ren, who was still standing at the door of the hospital with his back against the wall and his arms folded. They couldn't help but greet him. Izil. My name is Izir Qin. Qin Ren, who came back to his senses after hearing the voice, raised his eyelids and glanced at the bandage on Misaka Suekoto's left arm. Little brother, are you okay? Suekoto-sama was just scratched. Shirai Kirachi, who played the role of a loyal younger brother, said first, this incident was a close call. Now those who have woken up are being tested to see if there are any sequelae. Misaka Mikoto next to him put one hand on her waist and shook her head. I told you to be careful, brother, but you just didn't listen. The hospital also took the various terrifying sequelae that Qin Ren deliberately exaggerated last time very seriously, but in the end, nothing happened. Everyone returned to their original state without any sequelae. It's still hard to accept. Why did Junsuke Kama surrender? Why not continue to fight like in the original work? His eyes swept over Misaka Suekoto, wondering what was missing in the battle between the Misaka siblings and Kama Junsai. Oh, it seems that Hatsuharu didn't go to find teacher Kama, and, hey, Izil, are you listening? Shirai Kuroko's voice interrupted his thoughts again. Qin Ren raised his head and stared at Shirai Kuroko. At this time, you should take the little sister to drink and celebrate, and after you get drunk. Oh. Shirai Kuroko's eyes lit up instantly, as if she heard a good idea. Sister, let's celebrate. Underage drinking is let's go. Lady Suekoto, let's celebrate too. Shirai Kurachi's eyes lit up and said loudly, hey. This before Misaka Suekoto could finish. Shirai Kurachi had already activated his ability and dragged him away from Qin Ren's sight. The orange and gay and the orange or really? Hard to describe. Let's not talk about how complicated Qin Ren's mood is. He didn't have any extra imagination about the things between the two pairs of boys and girls. Anyway, 2 men and 2 women will not cause any deaths. As for whether the Shirai siblings can successfully defeat the Misaka siblings, Qin Ren has a negative attitude, but these are not important. It doesn't matter how others do it, as long as they don't do it to him, it's fine. Now, although I don't understand the reason why Kama Junshin surrendered, life must go on. Gold coins still need to be earned. Skills still need to be exchanged. Bad people still need to be good. Qin Ren, who has poor poetic talent, forced time, took a look at the ward of the leader Kamiju, and turned away. Time is getting dark. The night spread to the entire academy city, and Qin Ren, wearing the armband of the discipline committee, stood on the roof of the 8-story dormitory building, erected the sun disk, and continued the wide area investigation. Bounty, come out quickly. Where are you? Qin Ren, who was unconsciously reciting Annie's lines, searched for bad guys that could be knocked down. However, within a kilometer range centered on the dormitory, he did not see many bad guys, and most of them had been knocked down by him once. However, another discovery made Qin Ren pause. Question 1. When do normal people usually take a shower? Because of the real vision of the sun disk, all places within a kilometer range were captured by him, and when he happened to pass his sight over some rooms, and the owners of these rooms happened to be women, and Qin Ren silently retracted his sight and swore to the sky that he really, absolutely did not use the sun disk with any voyeuristic intentions. He really only opened the field of vision for the yellow sand gold coins. I swear, if not, let me be struck by lightning. The moment he said the last sentence, a flash of lightning flashed in his field of vision. Wait, it's not good to slap him in the face on the spot, right? I really don't have that idea. The figures of those women don't meet his standards. As a well-informed modern man, how could he do such a thankless thing as peeping? Turning his eyes to the place where the electric light flashed, he saw 2 or 3 bad boys lying on the ground and losing consciousness. And a familiar figure was turning away. Oh, it's Brother Pao. He has seen Misaka Suekoto electrotherapy of bad boys more than 10 times during his stay here, and he doesn't think it's strange. But why did Misaka Suekoto from Tokuwadai Boys School run to this apartment dormitory shared by several schools? Could it be? Qin Ren immediately thought of Misaka's younger brother, but there is no eyepiece, and there are no other features that are different from Misaka Suekoto. It should be Misaka Suekoto herself, right? As for these bad boys, Qin Ren still has some impression. These idiots wanted to blackmail the Hawaiian rich woman before, but they were knocked down by the Hawaiian rich woman's 3-stage laughter. As for who the Hawaiian rich woman is, there is no need to explain it, right? By the way, speaking of these 3 people, he has not beaten them unconscious yet. Cold, shaking. The moment he woke up, Ito-wan suddenly jumped up from the ground. He looked around in panic. The bright electric light in his mind and the quiet environment in front of him were instantly confused. At this time, he heard a voice: "It's really bad. You are the worst person among the people who came this time." A cold and indifferent voice came. Ito-wan raised his head, followed by the bright moonlight, and saw a very tall and strange person wearing knight armor like in comics and games. Cosplay? He has read too many boys' comics, although he is not afraid, but he still feels a little strange about people dressed weirdly. It's really painful to live in a world where no one picks up the meme. Qin Ren, who originally thought that the other party would say something like "Who are you? Why am I here?" Gave up the idea of continuing to play the meme in silence. Qin Ren squatted down, put on the armor of the sand soldier on himself, and directly grabbed the bad foot. Then the wind comes to wash on. Although his own physical strength was not enough to pick up a nearly 50 kilograms person and swing him in a circle, he was able to do it by controlling the power of sand. "Put me down!" Ito-wan, who was being swung in a circle, shouted in fear, and then he felt his ankle loosen, and he was thrown out dizzy, fell to the ground and fainted. Qin Ren also got what he wanted, 1 yellow sand gold coin. The G-level bag can only produce 1. What can he do? The other 3 bad guys were also woken up by him in the same way as he woke up the first bad guy, and then he knocked them out with the 3 moves of Tombstone Nail Head, RKO and Flying Shoulder. Thanks to the book Friends Gong Daimyo for the reward of 500 starting coins, and Red a Backman for the reward of 500 starting coins. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We are waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 62. People nowadays probably don't know the plot of the military killing fist. Not to mention, wearing this kind of armor, it looks quite suitable for wrestling. Qin Ren used wrestling moves that are basically only known by middle-aged people over 30 years old in modern times without any consciousness to knock out 3 bad guys. After that, he fell into confusion. Logically speaking, his magic power is G, right? And his attack power is also G. right? Why can sand lift a weight of 150 kg at most and can lift a weight of 120 kilograms continuously, but he can't do it with his body? This is not systematic. Thinking about it, he felt that he seemed to have overlooked one thing, that is, for his own strength, he seemed to have always subconsciously calculated according to his previous physical fitness. When encountering heavy objects, he would only lift them with sand, and he had never really touched heavy objects. After dispersing the sand soldier armor, Qin Ren squatted down and looked at the two bad guys. Then, he stretched out his hands, grabbed the ankles of a bad guy with his left and right hands, and then took a deep breath and lifted them up with force. The two bad guys, both less than 1.8 meters tall, were off the ground, with their arms hanging limply. Although it was very strenuous, it seemed that he had no problem picking up the two people. It seemed that the preconceived concept made him ignore the changes in his own strength. Unfortunately, he had never learned any martial arts, nor any moves such as taekwondo, karate, and sanda. He could only say that he had empty strength. The only move that could be called a move was the military boxing that he learned during the military training in college, which was less practical than fitness boxing. Besides, he had almost forgotten the military boxing. Under normal circumstances, the military boxing that ordinary people learned would not evolve into the military killing boxing. Qin Ren, who was close to the age of a magician in reality, had a series of Hong Kong comic spoofs that only people of his age knew in his mind. But it didn't matter, as long as he didn't fight a bug-level player like the leader. Close combat moves didn't need to be used at all. In reality, the battle contempt chain should be magician-warrior, so there was no need to worry too much. If I had known earlier, I would have added the skills of the weapon master into the system. The background setting of the weapon master is a martial arts master, who can beat all melee combat. But unfortunately, the character skills of LoL are only those that belong to the Shurima camp, such as heroes like Zerat Sivir, or characters with desert-themed skins, such as Reborn Scarecrow and Sand Bandit Pike. Qin Ren also put their skills into the system. There is no way, because there are too few things related to the desert in various works, so he pulled in the desert theme to make up the number. Now that I think about it, it's a good thing that he put all of the skills of desert-themed heroes in it. Good luck. As for the equipment, fortunately he didn't stick to the desert theme in equipment, and added all the equipment in LoL. Good luck. Otherwise, he wouldn't have the opportunity to exchange for artifacts such as the resurrection armor. This proves that sometimes immature ideas can also bring benefits. Glancing at the three people lying on the ground, Qin Ren lightly snapped his fingers, and when the sound echoed in the alley, a rustling sound rang out at the same time. Particles with a density similar to that of sand were peeled off from the concrete floor and walls, and rushed to Qin Ren's feet, lifting him up. By the way, let's start modeling the lizard tonight. At present, he plans to use sand to condense a lizard as a mount. It is a bit troublesome to directly condense a dragon with wings, and various bone binding and skinning actions are a bit troublesome. Moreover, if the dragon is small, it actually looks quite frustrating. After all, in the minds of ordinary people, dragons are all very large, and a dragon that is about the same size as a human will involuntarily produce the feeling of this dragon is so small from a psychological feeling. At this time, lizards come in handy. Even if the lizard is not too big, it will not look too frustrating. After all, normal lizards are very small, and a lizard about the same size as a human will feel a little majestic when compared in the mind. In addition to lizards, Qin Ren also considered scorpions and snakes. When you hear the word desert, the first thing that comes to mind is animals such as lizards, snakes, and scorpions. As for snakes and scorpions, there are many people who prefer dragons. It sounds cool, but when they actually come into contact with them, they will subconsciously resist. Lizards are better, so Qin Ren chose lizards. Moreover, the difference between lizards and dragons is not that big. Familiar with the modeling operation of lizards can provide experience for condensing dragons as mounts in the future. While thinking, Qin Ren stood on the sandboard, put his hands in his pockets, and flew out of the alley. Half a minute later, Qin Ren stopped in front of the dormitory apartment. Why? Because a nun was sitting in front of the dormitory apartment, holding her stomach with both hands. Little nun, What's wrong with you? Qin Ren couldn't help but ask. Index. Are you hungry? Or did you eat something wrong? Old woman Kamiju, you finally came back. Ah, it's the blonde Egyptian. Blonde Egyptian? What the hell? Qin Ren's mouth twitched, and he bent his upper body slightly. The shadow of his tall body covered Index's body, and then he looked down at her and said, Little nun, what did you call me just now? Blonde uncle. Index looked at Qin Ren with an expressionless face, swallowed her saliva, took a step back in panic, and called out another name with a strong desire to survive. Who is the uncle? Lazy. Wait a minute. According to his real age, he should be a circle older than Index. It seems that calling him uncle is not wrong. Qin Ren then remembered that he, who used to call the uncles and aunts of the 80s as a 90s, seemed to have been called uncle by the Zeros. If he still lived in the original world, after a while, the Zeros would also be called uncles and aunts by the Tens. But, in this world, he is not yet an adult! Qin Ren shamelessly reduced his age in his heart, but he didn't say it out loud. He just asked, Little nun, are you hungry? I'm hungry. I'm about to see the Lord, but old lady Kamiju hasn't come back yet. Index looked depressed. Sister Kamiju is still in the hospital. The leader went to take care of her. She won't be back tonight. Qin Ren couldn't help but said when he heard it. Ah, I forgot. God forgot. How could I forget this? You have a complete memory. Who are you trying to fool? Qin Ren complained silently, but at this moment Qin Ren's eyelids twitched, and he looked at Index with a bright smile and was silent. Before Kamiju comes back, I will be responsible for raising you. Lord, I met someone kinder than old lady Kamiju, although he is a blonde Egyptian, although he is a pagan. Sister Kamiju will cry, meeting a heartless foodie like you. Qin Ren smiled in his heart. Ancient Egyptians worshipped nature, pharaohs, and the dead, but most modern Egyptians believe in Islam. I don't believe in any religion. Qin Ren reached out and grabbed her collar and lifted her up like a chicken. Don't you have any faith? The lifted Index raised her head. Do you want to believe in the English Puritan Church? You want to be a missionary, a little nun who tampered with the doctrine at will? Qin Ren walked back to the dormitory while talking to her. Compared to your Puritanism, I still believe in the 9 pillars of God, which is more reliable. 9 pillars of God? You are indeed an Egyptian. Believe in the 9 pillars of God is Egyptian? Then what if I believe in myself? Gulp. Chapter 63 Attempts to model. Little nun, you eat first, Qin Ren said after making 3 portions of food with simple ingredients such as eggs and meat and placing them on the table where Index was waiting to be fed. After work, he rented a house by himself, but he still knew how to cook. Although he was not as good as those chefs, he was still worthy of the title of a house husband. Blonde Egyptian, you are a good person. After thanking her insincerely, Index grabbed the fork and spoon with both hands and ate and drank. It would be better if you could change the name Blonde Egyptian. Wait, am I a good person card now? Qin Ren shook his head and looked at Index, who was eating heartily. He turned to the computer, turned on the computer, and opened the modeling software. Which lizard is better? Which lizard looks more imposing? Komodo dragon? No, the Komodo dragon is just large in size, and the various details of the appearance do not look imposing. The difference in body size can be easily changed when he uses sand to condense. Flying lizard? Qin people searched for pictures of flying lizard. It has a long and thin tail that is nearly twice the length of the trunk, and an umbrella-shaped collar membrane around the neck. When courting or threatened, this neck membrane will open and stretch to the maximum, which can deter the enemy. It sounds a bit like a peacock. Although it is very imposing, it feels funny for some reason. Excluded. Then, four-legged snake. Four-legged snake, also known as skink. The reason for being called four-legged snake is that their scales are smooth and their bodies are slender. From a distance, if you don't pay attention to their feet, they look like snakes. More like a lizard without feet. It's better to choose a snake directly than a four-legged snake or a lizard. Excluded. Then, palace gecko. Palace gecko, commonly known as gecko. Most of them have feet similar to tree frogs. The big eyes of the gecko lizard still look quite intimidating, but rather than saying it is imposing, The gecko lizard is actually the cutest among lizards. Then the sand lizard. Most lizards of the genus Sarcops are adapted to living in deserts, semi-deserts, grasslands and other environments. However, these lizards are not very imposing in appearance. Imposing. What does it mean to be imposing? Sharp claws, sharp teeth, angular, that's right, thorny lizards. Also called thorny armored lizards and thorny magic lizards. Although thorny lizards are not Sarcops, most of them live in desert areas. They are covered with thorns. They should look very imposing. But, Qin Ren suddenly thought of a question at this time. Without wings, many dragons actually look very imposing. Wouldn't it be better if the four-element dragon removed its wings? Even if there are no wings, the body size is a little smaller, but it is much better than some thorny lizards and umbrella lizards. I'm just a stupid person. Qin Ren suddenly thought of this and couldn't help cursing himself in his heart. But what does the four-element dragon look like? Although there is an impression, no one can directly copy it without the original picture as a reference. In the end, he still has to find a reference. Let's build a model of a wingless earth dragon first. Using the thorny lizard as the prototype, slowly restore the model of the earth dragon. After thinking of the plan, Art began to work. In the 10 minutes he was thinking about the plan, Index had already eaten up the 3 portions of food he made. Blonde Egyptian, another portion. Hearing this, Qin Ren turned around and stood up, grabbed her collar and lifted her up. Blonde Egyptian, what are you going to do? Index, who was lifted up like a small animal, looked puzzled. Since you have finished eating, it's time to go home, Qin Ren said expressionlessly as he walked towards the entrance. Click. Qin Ren opened the door, put Index at the door, took the knife and fork from her hand, and closed the door. Then goodbye, little nun. Qin Ren reached out to close the door without mercy. Wait a minute. Index blocked the door with her body, squeezed in the doorway, and began to act pitiful. Can you bear to let a girl sleep on the street alone? However, Qin Ren didn't buy it. He straightened his neck and looked down at Index. Your home is downstairs. My home? Downstairs? Index immediately understood that Qin Ren was referring to Kamijumaki's dormitory, and couldn't help but be a little stunned. Do you understand, little nun? Seeing her stunned, Qin Ren didn't say anything more. The sandy loam in the cactus pot beside the entrance gushed out, pushing the stunned Index out, and then ruthlessly closed the door. However, before he turned around, a dong 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 sound came from outside the door. Index knocked on the door with her little hands, looking at the closed door with a pitiful face. Blonde Egyptian, blonde kind-hearted person. She hasn't eaten enough. She's still a little hungry. After waiting for half a minute, seeing that Qin Ren still didn't open the door, she stood in the corridor with her hands clasped together. Lord, there is a blonde Egyptian at this time. Qin Ren opened the door expressionlessly. Little nun, come here. Index's green eyes lit up, and she came to Qin Ren. Blonde Egyptian, are you going to confess to the pious nun? Are you going to give food to the poor nun? Eat, eat, eat. You only know how to eat. Are you a humanoid creature who thinks with your stomach? He complained in his heart, but there was no expression on his face. Come with me. Qin Ren did not answer, but put his right hand back into his trouser pocket, turned around and walked straight from the entrance to the balcony. Index, who thought that Qin Ren had a change of heart and wanted to give her food, hurriedly followed Qin Ren's nearly 1-meter-long legs to the edge of the balcony, and then stared at Qin Ren with watery eyes, like a puppy waiting to be fed. However, Qin Ren called her in again, not to feed her, but in the large round column potted plant on the balcony. The sandy loam surged and formed a pair of palms, the palms of the yellow sand soldiers. The next moment, the palms grabbed Index's hands. Blonde Egyptian, what are you going to do? Index was puzzled. Old woman Kamiju saved her, and the friend of old woman Kamiju, the blonde Egyptian, also assisted in the process. Index still had a good impression of him. In addition, this blonde Egyptian gave her food. Index, whose emotional intelligence was still at the level of a normal person, did not think that the other party had any malicious intentions. Send you home. However, although Qin Ren did not have any malicious intentions, looking at Index whose arms were grabbed by 2 sand hands, he suddenly had an idea. The next moment, Index saw more than 10 pairs of palms similar to the sand hands that grabbed her wrists condensed in the air, and then grabbed her ankles, calves, knees and arms, thanks to 2 for the reward of 100 starting coins. Chapter 64, Yifan's owner. The major revision has been completed. The minefield should be gone. Qin Ren finally remembered where this sense of déjà vu came from. A certain book? No, no, no. Only dirty people would think of books. In fact, Qin Ren thought of Shigaraki. Yes, he thought of Shigaraki, and definitely did not associate it with various books. The naive Index had no idea that the thinking of this blonde Egyptian in front of her had entered the adult world. Ahem. It has nothing to do with the book. I just thought of Shigaraki. I really didn't think of the book. Qin Ren controlled the hand of the sand soldier expressionlessly to lift her up, and put her down to the balcony of the leader's dormitory on the 7th floor amid her screams. Well, good night, little nun. More than a dozen palms waved at the same time, and then flew back to the windowsill on the 8th floor and flew into the large wheel column potted plant. Index took a look inside the room, which had been renovated and decorated, and then raised her head and shouted to Qin Ren, "Give me some more food." Boom! Qin Ren, who was dressed calmly, almost fell down because of an unsteady step. Oh my god, this foodie, can he think of anything else besides eating? Index was looking forward to it. She hoped that the blonde Egyptian would be kind enough to give the poor nun some food. However, after waiting for dozens of seconds, she did not hear the other party's answer. Index, who was sitting like a duck, stood up and muttered, "Lord, the blonde Egyptian has become no longer kind." Qin Ren, who had just found some snacks he bought a few days ago from the fresh-keeping layer of the refrigerator and was about to give them to Index, stopped standing on the balcony. "Little nun." Index hurriedly raised her head and saw Qin Ren leaning on the balcony, throwing and catching something with one hand. "Blonde Egyptian, can you please change your name? The name of blonde Egyptian is too frustrating." After muttering helplessly to himself, he threw the snacks in his hand down. But when Index reached out to catch it, the surging quicksand rolled up the snacks directly and brought them back to his hand. Watching Index's expression change from joy to anger, Qin Ren inexplicably felt the panic of the leader when facing the head-biting beast. It shouldn't pounce on me and bite me, right? Probably not. According to the setting of the hippopotamus, Index will only bite people close to her. However, his expressionless face made him look completely calm. It turns out that mood can affect expression, and expression can also affect mood. The expressionless state made him calm down quickly. He threw the snack bag in his hand again. "Little nun, do you want it? Do you think I will compromise with you because of this?" Index snorted. "Old Lady Kamaju told me that some bad guys like to use lollipops to lure girls to do weird things." Don't even think about it at this moment. She suddenly opened her eyes, subconsciously stretched out her hands, and then grabbed something. Qin Ren was also stunned when he saw this scene. Is this the so-called specialized perception of food? Little nun, you are very skilled. After saying this, Qin Ren turned around and left to continue modeling. After seeing Qin Ren leave, Index ran into Kamajumaki's brand new room with snacks like a hamster. Qin Ren, who was sitting in front of the computer and preparing to start modeling, suddenly remembered something. Spicy fish, spicy squid, spicy shrimp. He finally remembered that those few packets of snacks were left because he couldn't eat spicy food, not because he forgot to eat them. Forget it. Foodies shouldn't be picky, right? Thinking of this, Qin Ren hung his headphones on his ears. He habitually turned up the volume and didn't hear the wailing coming from downstairs. The next day, when Qin Ren floated downstairs from the balcony, he saw Index standing on the balcony and distracted. When he saw him, Index took a few steps back as if she saw a bad guy. I am the owner of your meal after all. What's the matter with this expression? Forget it. Talking to a foodie, without food, it is not convincing. Besides, Index is not a big sister with curvy figure. He is still a little interested in waiting for Index to become a big sister with curvy figure in 10 years. But, Index is already 15 years old, right? For a girl, it can be said that she has stopped growing. There is no possibility of growth. It's really a pity. While thinking about this in his heart, Qin Ren has successfully landed on the ground with the support of the sand. Today, Collect 100 gold coins and exchange for the resurrection armor. There are only more than 10 yellow sand gold coins missing. However, the fantasy hand incident has been resolved, and all the ability users who rely on the fantasy hand to upgrade and cause trouble have disappeared. By the way, regardless of that, he can experiment. He has already made a model of the Earth Dragon without wings. What? Is there a problem? How can the modeling be so fast? Who said to start the modeling from the scratch? Although this world is different from his original world, how can there be no dragon models in various games on the market? Just find a few 3D games with Western dragons as bosses or monsters, copy the models, and then modify them appropriately to make the models look more like Earth dragons and more handsome. It doesn't take much time at all. A few hours is enough. Moreover, in order to make it look more in line with the desert theme, he also added some details, and he also copied some of the patterns on the sun disk. There are also corresponding patterns on the eyeballs and body. It looks very suitable for the identity of the Emperor of the Desert. The prototype is an Earth Dragon, so let's name it Ceylon for the time being. No, it can't be called a dragon without wings. Ground Dragon, Sand Dragon, Desert Ground Dragon. It doesn't seem very imposing. Lizard Dragon, Dragon Lizard, sounds good. Sand Lizard Dragon, Ceylon Lizard, Desert Dragon Lizard, Desert Lizard Dragon, Yellow Sand Lizard, Yellow Sand Lizard Dragon, Crazy Sand Lizard, Crazy Sand Lizard Dragon, Shurima Dragon Lizard, Shurima Lizard Dragon, Desert Dragon Lizard, Desert Lizard Dragon. It's hard to choose. Let's call it Desert Dragon Lizard for the time being. After struggling for a while, Qin Ren tentatively named it Desert Dragon Lizard. Normally, it doesn't cost much to condense a wingless Western dragon, that is, a desert dragon lizard. He condensed a desert dragon lizard indoors once, and the consumption was no different from condensing sand in general, basically according to weight. Unlike condensing sand soldiers, when condensing sand soldiers, due to the mana core, sand soldiers can be used as targets for the Tsar's Q skill Crazy Sand Attack and E skill Quick Sand Shift. The process of casting is that Qin Ren first constructs the core with mana, and then condenses sand soldiers with the core as the center. What Still said before is actually correct. Destroying the core of the sand soldier can destroy the sand soldier. When the mana core of the sand soldier is destroyed, the sand soldier will lose the basic G skill damage. The highest G level magic power bonus that Qin Ren infuses with mana is equal to the damage of condensing ordinary quicksand attacks. P.S. The recent comments are all about Misaka and Misaka. Summarizing the comments, it is basically one sentence. Those who see Magic Index comment are basically all for Misaka. The comments of these people basically mean that male characters can be feminized, but female characters cannot be synicized. Because I don't like tsundere traits, although I like Kangmai but not Misaka Mikoto. And my favorite character in Torumajutsu no Index is the Shokuo Queen, and Kangmai didn't have much role in the outline, basically just a passing role. Spreading hands, it seems that I can't use the synicized female character's magic method next time. What a pity, I have saved up a lot of funny memes, but now I can't use them. Hey, I thought of a funny idea, but it may require major changes. Do you think I should do it? Chapter 65. Has my reputation also been damaged? The constructed monocore can resonate with the quicksand and the Qin people themselves, and get more mana from the Qin people, thereby strengthening the entire sand soldier. This is the basic damage G of the skill. Such a strengthening makes them stronger than the sand that is usually condensed, and will also bring basic skill damage, and can make them the target of special manipulation by the Qin people. But the consumption of mana is also higher. The Qin people have experimented and copied the mana core structure of the sand soldier inside the condensed desert dragon lizard. It was successful, but the consumption was very high. The mana core will resonate with the sand. The more sand there is, the more mana is needed for resonance. In general, it is not very cost-effective. After all, his original purpose was to use the desert dragon lizard as a means of transportation to increase momentum. In order to reduce mana consumption, he also specially formulated a strategy to make an empty shell. Because the mana consumption depends on the weight of the condensed sand, so he took a shortcut, When condensing the desert dragon lizard, he only condensed the outer shell, and the inside was empty. In this way, although the desert dragon lizard looks large, it actually consumes not much mana, which is acceptable. Although such a hollow is very fragile, there is no way for the time being. His current mana can't support the solid desert dragon lizard for too long. When he collects 1,000 yellow sand gold coins one day, he will upgrade the blood of Shurima to reduce the consumption of manipulating sand, or increase the mana level and the upper limit. At that time, he can really make desert dragon lizards and construct sand soldier cores in their bodies, so that they can fight like sand soldiers. Now, just construct the empty shell first, as long as it can increase the momentum and reduce the mana consumption as much as possible. Improving momentum can increase the recovery speed, and faster recovery can support the desert dragon lizard as amount to increase momentum. This is a virtuous circle. Do it as you say. He took out his phone and clicked on the rendered model video. Unlike the deep and clear memory he had when he exchanged skills from the system, he was not familiar with the model of the desert dragon lizard. He could not memorize the details of the model in one day. At this time, he needed the help of his phone. Take a look before using it to deepen his impression. This method is still very good. After reviewing for half a minute and deepening his memory of the desert dragon lizard in his mind, Qin Ren turned off his phone and began to visualize the model of the desert dragon lizard and manipulate the sand to condense. It is 1 meter tall, over 3 meters long, and sandy yellow in color. Its body is similar to that of a lizard, and its body is covered with scales. Its neck is longer and thicker than that of a lizard, and the distance between its front and rear feet is longer. Its head, which is like a lizard or a crocodile, has dense, sharp frills. At the tip of its nose, a sharp horn like a triceratops extends out. Its sharp teeth are revealed in its slightly open mouth, as if it can easily tear apart steel. Its thick, angular tail looks like it can easily smash the ground even without any movement. As for the eyeballs of the desert dragon lizard, Qin Ren deliberately condensed some reflective particles such as glass slag, making it look more like a living thing. At this time, he felt that the speed of mana recovery was increasing. In other words, the momentum value was increasing. Shurima, your emperor is back. Qin Ren closed his eyes slightly and turned on the system. As expected, the momentum value had soared to 43%. Qin Ren turned his sight and found the surprised eyes of the students who were still in his dormitory. Qin Ren secretly controlled the desert dragon lizard to make a move. Under Qin Ren's somewhat awkward control, it squatted down, and its long tail bent to the side of its left hind leg. It was like a living creature that could understand his will. But in fact, only Qin Ren himself knew that this thing had no self-will at all, and it had to be controlled by him personally to act. When the desert dragon lizard made a move, the momentum value soared again, and instantly rose to 54%. 1.54% every 5 seconds, 1.54 times the recovery speed, has exceeded the consumption of maintaining an empty shell of the desert dragon lizard. Great! Qin Ren clenched his fists in his heart, but his expression remained unchanged. He stepped on the tail of the desert dragon lizard and stood on the back of the desert dragon lizard. The momentum value rose again and reached 59%. The next step is to run. Want to run before you learn to walk? Are you looking for death? Qin Ren naturally wouldn't be so anxious. If the movement was too large, the body of this empty desert dragon lizard would fall apart. Walk slowly first. Under Qin Ren's control, the desert dragon lizard imitated the way of walking that he had practiced for half an hour by condensing a palm-sized desert dragon lizard yesterday, and slowly moved along the road. The momentum value rose again, to 62%. It's okay, it's okay. Great. Whether it was the surprised eyes of others or the sense of completion of the desert dragon lizard he made successfully moving, Qin Ren was happy. In order to make the desert dragon lizard look more vivid, he also controlled the desert dragon lizard's 4 eyelids to blink a few times from time to time. The momentum value soared by a few percentage points. I didn't expect that a desert dragon lizard could gain so much momentum value. It's awesome. Is that a dragon? So cool. No, that's a lizard, right? It doesn't have wings, but it's super cool too. Is it a robot? How do you make it move? Maybe it's a power? I remember he is. On the road, The male students who saw the desert dragon lizard moving because of their companions' reminders couldn't help but exclaimed. As students of Academy City, they naturally couldn't associate it with magic. But the first thing they thought of was the power of robots and people with special abilities. Wait a minute, I remember that person. It seems to be the discipline committee member, right? What was his name? A male student took a look at the Qin man on the back of the desert dragon lizard and felt that Qin man looked familiar, so he started to think. Another male student who had a better memory and lived in the same building as Qin Ren remembered Qin Ren's identity. Wait a minute, isn't he the ghost student in Mr. Huang Quanquan's class? Wujiu, is he in your class? It seems so. His name is Izir Qin. He is a foreign student who transferred here about 2 months ago, but he has only attended a few classes. Moreover, he has a very bad temper and is indifferent to others. He has a cold face all day long. I heard that this person often goes out to fight at night and beat up Mamiya. Because he often beats people, Mr. Huang Quanquan, who is a security guard, arrested him and made him a discipline committee member, hoping that he would reform himself. The male student named Juyuan Wujiu, who seemed to be in the same class as Qin Ren, started gossiping with his gay friends. Mamiya, is he the top student in your class? He was beaten. Is this person actually a bad boy? Thanks to the book Friends I Live for the reward of 500 starting coins. Chapter 66. It seems that lizards are indeed not popular with girls. While they were talking, they didn't dare to get close because of the comments like difficult to get along with and bad temper. Qin Ren could hear their round. Jian Gongxi. There is such a person. Oh, I remember. It's the delinquent who used disposable hair dye to dye his hair? Qin Ren remembered who Jian Gongxi they were talking about. He was one of the delinquents who was beaten unconscious by him. He wrote him down because he felt familiar. Later he remembered that he was in the same class. There was indeed such an excellent student in the class, but he actually liked to be a delinquent. Every weekend, he dyed his hair with disposable hair dye and then ran to be a delinquent. However, why are the rumors about him becoming more and more outrageous? He was caught by Huang Quanquan to be a discipline committee member in order to make him reform? What is this? But forget it, he didn't feel anything. On the contrary, because of what they talked about, he felt that his momentum value had increased a little. Notoriety can also improve momentum. It's okay. 7th School District. District E. Qin Ren sat on the desert dragon lizard, and under the gaze of nearly 100 people, he looked at the male student on the ground who was pinned to the ground by the desert dragon lizard's claws. The desert dragon lizard's body is indeed quite fragile. If it continues to remain in an empty shell state while pinning down a person like this, it will be easy for it to break free and be destroyed. For this reason, he deliberately filled the right claw of the desert dragon lizard that was pinning down the prisoner with enough sand. Now, the right claw of the desert dragon lizard is solid. Not to mention pinning down a person, it is no problem to crush his brain. Qin Ren kept his hands in his pockets, jumped off the back of the desert dragon lizard, and stood in front of the male student. So, is that you? After walking around for a long time, he occasionally erected the sun disk in a hidden place to observe the situation, and contacted Chuck Hun to find a case. After half a day, he finally got 5 cases. 18 yellow sand gold coins and 1 G-level certificate. Now there are 92 coins, and he only needs to get 8 more, and he can change to the resurrection armor. I hope this guy can give him an F-level sandbag. No, it's not me, I don't have it. The pressure on his back and Qin Ren's emotionless voice made him swallow his saliva and then argue loudly. However, at this time, a girl wearing a long school uniform of a girl's school next to him, panting, immediately refuted. It's him. He tried to break into the dormitory with his invisibility ability, but was discovered by another girl with optical operation ability, who exposed him. He ran out. Don't listen to him. It's really not me. The male student who was accused immediately argued loudly. Qin Ren turned his head and glanced at the female student. Are you sure it's him? I'm sure. The girl nodded firmly. I have. Don't listen. Boom. With the sound of the collision, the male student was slapped by the desert dragon lizard controlled by Qin Ren. The male student's voice stopped abruptly. The male student fainted, And the female student looked at the unconscious male student lying on the ground and then looked at the desert dragon lizard who lay down on the spot and closed his eyes after doing this. The ability to change the color of fabrics. The female student's words also slowly stopped. Can the fabric change color? Qin Ren turned his eyes to the male student who was lying on the ground. There was indeed a black mark on his back. He thought it was ink or something at first. It turned out that it was changed by the ability. Blinking, he turned his eyes back to the female student. Do you need to report him for peeping? Come with me to the nearby discipline committee branch and record the information. No need. The female student looked at Qin Ren, and her eyes turned to the huge, ferocious giant lizard behind Qin Ren. She swallowed her saliva, then looked at the male student who was lying on the ground, and said in a trembling voice, just now, she was busy chasing this peeping Tom and ignored the monster. Now she noticed it. She couldn't help but step back a few steps. Qin Ren was slightly stunned. It was because of the girl's stepping back and the sudden increase in the system's momentum value. The speed of his mana recovery became a little faster. Thank you very much. The girl turned around and left immediately after bowing. Qin Ren looked at the girls fleeing back and couldn't help thinking, it turns out that girls basically don't like lizards. He turned his head and glanced at the desert dragon lizard, but it seemed that being scared by a girl brought a lot of momentum. Well, it's decided. Keep it up. Controlling the desert dragon lizard to stand up from the ground, Qin Ren lifted himself up with quicksand and flew onto the back of the desert dragon lizard. This time, it's better to change the sitting position. Forget the straddling position, it looks a bit awkward. And the position of sitting with legs sideways is a bit too feminine. Then, sit on the back of the desert dragon lizard, bend your right leg, put your right hand on your right leg, and support the back of the desert dragon lizard with your left hand, just like the posture when you are in a high place or at the seaside and feel the wind. This should be able to increase your momentum, right? When he sat on it, the people around him who came to watch because they saw his desert dragon lizard made noisy discussions and automatically made way. As for the male student who was knocked unconscious by the desert dragon lizard, after some discussion, the other members of the discipline committee who came later dealt with him. As for Qin Ren, should we call him back? Haven't you heard about him? That person has a very violent personality. He will knock out every suspect indiscriminately. I heard that the discipline committee member who tried to stop him was also knocked out by him. Be careful not to be knocked out too. Can such a person be a discipline committee member? Why not? Although he knocked the person unconscious, he didn't suffer any other injuries except being knocked unconscious. I heard from the security guard that his reason was that he didn't want to waste too much effort and knocking him unconscious could prevent him from escaping. What kind of a reason is that? Forget it. The discipline committee headquarters knows all about these things and they haven't deprived him of his status as a discipline committee member. Maybe the headquarters thinks his methods are not excessive. Is knocking someone unconscious not excessive? This is harm. Qin Ren didn't know what the discipline committee members who came later said. Even if he knew, he didn't feel anything. All the reasons were false. There was only one reason. If he didn't knock someone unconscious, he wouldn't have the yellow sand gold coin. Could he just kill him directly? And he was very measured in his actions. He just knocked people out. Speaking of which, some time ago, he needed to attack the vulnerable parts twice or even 3 times to make people faint. But now he only needs one blow. Because of countless times of knocking people out, he is now able to knock people out with one blow. As for the fact that there are people watching, he completely welcomes it. The more people there are, the faster his momentum value will rise. For example, this F-level bag he got when his momentum value is 67%. As long as he opens 5 yellow sand gold coins, he can get 8 yellow sand gold coins. Thanks to the book friend for the reward of 100 Kidian coins. Chapter 67. Who the hell is sticking eyes in my house? You have obtained 11 yellow sand gold coins. You have obtained 1 G-level certificate. 103 pieces. You can exchange for things. The first thing to exchange is of course the resurrection armor. Do you still need to think about it? But there is a problem. After exchanging, will the resurrection armor suddenly appear in the inventory? Or suddenly appear in his hand, or suddenly appear on his body? If it is exchanged in the game, If it is equipment, it will appear directly on his body. Replace the existing equipment. The resurrection armor is a top, and if it is exchanged directly, it will replace his top. As mentioned before, the common texture of equipment such as masks is Azra's mask color change, and the texture of equipment such as tops is also Azra's clothing armor color change. The same is true for shoes and staffs. But in the game, because he doesn't have the energy to draw so many textures, therefore, no matter what equipment the protagonist in the game changes, the texture will not change. If it is exchanged, will the equipment be worn on his body, and will the big bald head notice it? After strolling around and persuading a few bad people to do good, Qin Ren couldn't help his curiosity and wandered back to the dormitory. Yo-ho Mr. Izir Qin Ren suddenly heard a voice behind him as he walked up the stairs from the 7th floor to the 8th floor. He turned around and looked. Oh, it's a robot maid, Tsutamika, the younger sister of Tsutamika Sanaharu. Robot maid? Is this my new nickname? Tsutamika, who was sitting on the top of the robot and spinning with it, tapped her chin with a puzzled look on her face. You can wear a longer skirt and cover the robot in the skirt, and it will look more like a robot. Qin Ren waved his hand and continued to walk upstairs. So that's how it is. There is such a way to play. The moment Qin Ren stepped onto the 8th floor, Tsutamika's serious voice came from downstairs. However, when Qin Ren came to the door, something is wrong. The sand is wrong. The sand that he deliberately placed on the floor of the room as a warning measure has deviated from its position. Qin Ren opened the door and carefully sensed the position of the sand's deviation. 2 people came in and were still walking around the room. Thieves? Qin Ren frowned slightly. There was nothing precious in his room, so why did someone come to his room to steal things? Qin Ren looked around carefully. Nothing was stolen. Qin Ren carefully sensed the position of the sand on the floor of the room and other places again. Wait a minute. Computer? Qin Ren turned his sight to the position of the computer host. His computer had been moved. The mouse had been moved, and the keyboard had been moved. Although the position was the same as before he left, the positions of the dozen or so grains of sand he had deliberately sprinkled in the keyboard and on the edge of the mouse were wrong. For him, randomly sprinkling sand in the room had no effect on his life at all. As long as he thought about it, he could easily remove all the sand in the room. He sprinkled sand in the room and at the door mainly to prevent theft. Originally, he didn't think he would really encounter a thief, but just to prevent it, but didn't expect to really meet one. He sensed the USB port of the computer again. Sure enough, the sand there also showed signs of being moved. Why did you touch my computer? Qin Ren was a little surprised. The first time, it was because he was learning the sand soldier appearance, and his computer was damaged. Because of the relationship between Kamiju and Index, his room was damaged, and the computer was damaged again. The computer and many things were newly bought. There were only the models of the Desert Dragon Lizard, Yellow Sand Soldier, and Yellow Sand Imperial Guard that he built. There were also many models of giant dragons and flying dragons that he dug out from a certain game as the prototype of the Desert Dragon Lizard. After thinking of condensing the Desert Dragon Lizard, he also had other ideas, such as making some dragon cavalry, so he also prepared to build the model of the Yellow Sand Soldier. But he didn't start. It was just a simple pattern. He had to say, wait a minute, could it be? He remembered what Steel, the fire-weaving god, and Index had said before, your Yellow Sand Soldiers look like puppets, and those decorative patterns also look like spells. Could it be because of this? Could it be the big bald head? Impossible. If the bald guy wants to know these things, why would he need to send someone to sneak into his room? He is a big boss who can become a demon god if he wants to. He is not only one step away from becoming a demon god, but he has the foundation to become a demon god. He just hasn't taken this step. Apart from other actions, the nano-machines all over the Academy City and the existence of the air suspension loop can see through the things in every corner of the Academy City. Apart from other means, if the bald guy wants to know something, he can just use the air suspension loop to take a look. Besides, those decorative patterns are really just decorations. The real function is his monostructure core. Those are really just decorations. They have no effect at all. Who sneaked into his dormitory? Qin Ren was a little puzzled. Then, He erected a sun disk in the room, with the room as the center. All objects within a kilometer around were clearly displayed in Qin Ren's field of vision, especially in the room downstairs. Nearly 10,000 nanomachines with air suspension loops were densely packed in and around the leader's room. It can be said that the place with the most nanomachines in the entire Academy City is the leader's house. It can be said that the thing that Qin Ren resisted the most was to erect the solar disk near the leader's house. Those nanomachines that could be observed by the real vision of the solar disk were like eyes to him. Although he did not have intensive phobia, his aversion to dense objects was the instinctive resistance of organisms to eating rotten matter during evolution. Sand? Sand is of course different. How could a normal person be afraid of sand? What's more, Qin Ren had a natural liking for sand, derived from Shurima's blood, derived from the system. He didn't know where it came from. But those nanomachines in the air-dwelling loop were certainly different from sand. Qin Ren used the vision of the solar disk to scan the room, about 100 or so. At this moment, Qin Ren frowned. In addition to the air-dwelling loop, there was another strange reaction. It was like the reaction when the solar disk took the surveillance cameras on the street into its field of view. Damn it, forget about that bald guy who's been inserting eyes. She's inserted hundreds of millions of eyes in the whole Academy City. She's rich and we can't beat her, so we can only let her do it. But who inserted this eye? Who the hell inserted an eye in my room? Qin Ren raised his eyebrows. It's okay that the bald guy is riding on his head. But what's this? Should he remove the eyes directly now? Or find the person who inserted the eye? He wants to know who inserted this eye. This thing should be a surveillance camera. Qin Ren turned his eyes to the upper left corner of the room. On the wall, there was a machine with a similar color to the wall. Since it's a surveillance camera, it should transmit the information back to somewhere, right? But Qin Ren himself doesn't have any hacking skills. Find Hatsuharu Shiri? No. The person who has the ability to set up a surveillance camera in his room may be the top of Academy City. If it's the top of Academy City, and asks Hatsuharu for help, will Hatsuharu suffer? Then find Brother Pao or Sister Pao. As the top two people with electrical and magnetic abilities, they also have hacking skills. Moreover, they will eventually confront the top leaders, and they are also quite strong. After comprehensive consideration, they are still the preferred choice over Chuck Hun. Thanks to the book friend for the 1000 starting coins and 2017102402035974 for the 500 starting coins. Chapter 68. It is difficult to call the right name. Pauj will not be killed by the higher-ups so easily, and because of the absolute ability plan, it will sooner or later confront Academy City. However, let's exchange the resurrection armor first. Qin Ren walked into the bathroom and erected the sun disk outside the door again. In the bathroom, there are 3 surveillance eyes of the hovering loop. Pretending to be careless, Qin Ren grabbed the towel hanging in the bathroom, pulled it a few times, let the wind blow the monitor of the hovering loop out, and then closed the door. The nanoscale hovering loop is super light and can determine their location. Isn't it easy to blow them away? Standing in the bathroom, Qin Ren whispered, "Shurima, your emperor is back." As the command sounded, a translucent panel like a sand painting emerged in his mind. A huge yellow sand disk full of grandeur floated in his mind like the sun. On the huge disk like the sun, 5 small disks condensed from yellow sand were separated. Exchange. Qin Ren directly opened the exchange list. Sand armor, guardian angel, ghost mask, pumice rush, cloth armor, guardian angel, G, plus 45% G attack power plus 40% G armor unique passive. When receiving fatal damage, it will stagnate for 4 seconds and resurrect on the spot, recovering 50% G health and 30% G maximum mana. Cooling time, 300 seconds. Exchange price, 100 yellow sand gold coins. Exchange. The number of yellow sand gold coins in the bounty column changed from 103 to 3. But he didn't wear the resurrection armor. He was still wearing that ordinary t-shirt, but he could feel the power brought by the equipment. His strength increased by almost half, and he could feel the surging strength in his body. His waist was no longer sore, his legs were no longer painful, and it was no effort to go up to the 8th floor in one breath. Gently clenched his fists and Qin Ren took a deep breath. This feeling of power is so cool. Then he turned his attention to the equipment column. Equipment, ordinary t-shirt, guardian angel, ordinary overalls, ordinary shoes. The guardian angel, the texture is exactly Izir's clothing, but the color has changed to the color of the resurrection armor, which is exactly the same as the texture he drew lazily. However, it did not show up on him. Should I try to take it out? The hovering loop has been taken out by him, and there are no other monitors here, so Qin Ren took the equipment out of the equipment column. However, after he thought about the command take out the guardian angel with his mind, the resurrection armor did not appear in his hand, but appeared in the inventory. Take out the guardian angel. Qin Ren tried again, still nothing. The resurrection armor still stopped at the first grid in the 3x10 inventory column. After that, Qin Ren tried various methods and finally came to the conclusion, based on the current situation, the exchanged items can only be placed in the inventory, and cannot be taken out. Equip the guardian angel. The resurrection armor in the inventory instantly disappeared and appeared on the equipment column. The feeling of strength brought by 45% G-level attack power and 40% G-level armor reappeared, and there was no clothing on his body, but that is to say, the equipment would not have any external display. He looked the same whether he was wearing equipment or not. Is this the consequence of being lazy and not using a paper doll system and only using one set of models? How can it be fixed? I would have done it earlier. Why didn't I say it earlier? If there is a chance, he will write a book notes for time travelers and make a paper doll system when making games. After secretly cursing himself before the time travel, Qin Ren was relieved again, because he had thought about it before. What should he do if the equipment was displayed? Wear that kind of exaggerated clothing to walk on the street, run around, take it off when taking a bath, then lose the effect of the resurrection armor? But now, this not-so-good result has solved his worries. Looking at the resurrection effect on the resurrection armor, Qin Ren's heart suddenly felt much safer. With the resurrection armor, should I be able to go out for a bit, or wait for a flash? If there is no flash, I will go out for a bit. How about waiting for the golden body stopwatch? Qin Ren glanced at the remaining 4 exchange items in the exchange column. He didn't know when he could get the flash golden body or something like that. Anyway, the result was pretty good. After confirming that the resurrection armor was not in a cooling state, Qin Ren walked out of the bathroom. Should I go find Brother Pao or Sister Pao next? Find the guy who put a ward in his room and beat him up. At this moment, the brown-haired boy, Misaka Suekoto, wearing the uniform of Tokawada Elite Boys High School, was wandering on the street. In his hand, he was holding an advertising leaflet, family combination bucket. As long as you buy 3, you can enjoy a 10% discount, and you can choose one of the snake and Quada pendants. Call Mikoto and Kurachi to come together. Mikoto must take Quada, and I want snake, so we need 6 people. Call Kuroko too, so that's 4. Then call the Lia siblings and Hatsuharu. Just as he was thinking about it, his cell phone rang, blinking. Misaka Suekoto took out her cell phone from her trouser pocket. Hello little brother, where are you? Qin Ren, who answered the phone, just called out the name, and heard a crackling sound, just like the noise of the phone crackling because of a poor signal decades ago. Qin Ren subconsciously put the phone farther away. Sure enough, just half a second after he moved the phone away from his ear, Misaka Suekoto's roar came from the phone. I'm not a little brother. Qin Ren replied indifferently, wait until you call my name correctly. The other party has never called Izir Qin correctly. On the other side, Misaka Suekoto was stunned when she heard Qin Ren's words, and after a pause, Izir Qin? My name is Izir Qin. Qin Ren was a little speechless. Sometimes he wondered if the other party did it on purpose. I know, it's Izir Qin. Izir Qin. Misaka Suekoto's face turned red. After I call you the right name, you will call me right? Yes, I will call you. Qin Ren thought for 2 seconds and thought of a new name, Misaka boy. It sounds good, doesn't it? Qin Ren's voice was a little teasing. He remembered that the leader had the nickname Kamijo boy. It just so happened that you will inherit this title, Misaka boy. Forget it. Anyway, it's better than the previous name. Misaka Suekoto said weakly. Or do you want me to call you Lightning Master, Lightning Messenger or something like that? Lightning Master, Lightning Messenger? It sounds good. Misaka Suekoto's eyes lit up. At this moment, the other party's voice sounded again. These are names that only middle school kids in boys' comics like. You don't like them either? No, I like it, Misaka Suekoto said with her neck stiff. Qin Ren on the other side of the microphone was silent. Since you're Misaka Mikoto's brother, you should be a good tsundere, but forget it, he doesn't get the point of the tsundere attribute. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We are waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 69. Are you so excited about riding a lizard? I didn't expect that you would be under surveillance one day. After hearing Qin Ren's reason, Misaka Suekoto agreed to Qin Ren's request without hesitation and followed him to the dormitory. Qin Ren was a little surprised that Brother Pao agreed to his request so readily. I thought you would refuse. I will still help with this kind of thing. The Misaka boy had a puzzled look on his face. Why do you think I would refuse? Because you don't look kind enough, Qin Ren said expressionlessly. What do you mean I don't look kind enough? Are you talking to me? The Misaka boy glared at Qin Ren, who had his hands in his pockets and had a blank expression. Just kidding. Brother Pao is actually quite easy to talk to. At least he feels easier to talk to than Sister Pao. This can be seen from his relationship with Hai. He has dealt with this kind of face-saving personality that likes to pretend to be a big brother a lot in the workplace. Besides, Brother Pao is not one of those old-fashioned people in the workplace who will start to laugh when they need help after receiving your benefits, and you have to bleed again before he agrees to help. Pauj is obviously not such a seasoned man. He feels that as long as they are familiar with each other, it is okay to help. But he was also a little surprised. He and Pauj were not that close, so he would not agree to help so easily. But Pauj still agreed to help very readily. Izir, if you have anything to ask for, just come to me for help. As long as I have time, I will help. The Misaka boy straightened his body, which was less than 1.7 meters in total, and patted his chest. This is indeed very brother-like, but you are not tall enough, Pauj. Qin Ren looked down at the Misaka boy and said silently in his heart. Then, he asked, by the way, little brother, you like a character called Snake, right? Qin Ren just said that. The Misaka boy in front of him nodded, and admitted his preference without hesitation. That's right. Qin Ren stretched out his hand expressionlessly, and the quicksand around him surged, condensing into an irregular snake shape. After the matter is over, I will make a statue for you as a thank you gift. Although the soil does not have a rigid structure like sand, a single grain is more fragile and may break if you use force, which is more laborious to operate. But it is not impossible to operate. It can still be operated with more effort. It is still very simple to make a statue. The Misaka boy was stunned, and then thought, why didn't I think of it? Although he focuses on the direction of electrothermal generation, his sister Misaka Mikoto focuses on magneto-electric conversion, which allows her to control magnetism and use iron sand to make snake toys. While talking to himself, he used magnetism to gather the surrounding iron sand. At this time, he felt an inexplicable force that dispersed the iron sand that he had gathered with magnetic force. Although this force was not strong, it was probably only at level 3, but it could compete with his magnetic force. Misaka Suekoto turned her eyes to Qin Ren. We'll try it slowly later. Help me find the enemy first. Qin Ren said expressionlessly. He didn't expect that his power could compete with level 5 Pauj. No, it's not a competition. If he had the same level of power as Pauj, he could suppress it. His power was not to drive the sand from the outside, but to control the movement of the sand from the inside. After coming to this conclusion, Qin Ren clenched his right fist and recalled the model of the desert dragon lizard in his mind. In an instant, countless quicksands on the surrounding ground rolled up, forming a huge sand-yellow lizard with a height of 1 meter and a length of more than 3 meters in front of Qin Ren, just like a wingless earth dragon. However, He was not like Index, who could remember every detail completely. Because of his memory, some details were not restored. Fortunately, he was well prepared. Qin Ren took out his phone and opened the video of the rendered model. According to the model video, Qin Ren restored the details of the model. The Misaka boy next to him looked at the desert dragon lizard that suddenly appeared, and his eyes were almost full of stars. "What is this? So cool." Qin Ren turned his head in surprise when he heard the voice, and looked at the Misaka boy's eyes. "I almost forgot that Brother Pao was not as childish as Sister Pao, but a middle school boy. After the matter is over, I will let you ride as much as you want." After hearing this, Misaka Makin immediately grabbed Qin Ren's arm, and in Qin Ren's puzzled eyes, he said firmly and resolutely, "Lead the way. Are you so excited to let you ride a lizard? You like black?" "No, human beast." Dormitory, 8th floor. Qin Ren just opened the door, and Brother Pao rushed in. "Where is it? Where is the monitor?" "Here." As the top of the electrical and magnetic ability users, Misaka Makin immediately discovered the operating monitor through electromagnetic waves. "You want to track him, right?" Misaka Suekoto turned to Qin Ren and smiled confidently. "Watch me." When Qin Ren walked into the door, Misaka Suekoto's body shot out electricity and rushed into the monitor. "Izir, I found it." In the 8th school district, a staff apartment, a mature girl with shoulder-length black hair and bangs fixed up with a maid-style Katyusha headband was flipping through the screens of various monitors. At this time, she was suddenly stunned with a fearless smile on her face. "It's terrible. It was discovered just half a day after it was installed, and I found the Thunder Magnetic Heat Chain and the Level 5 Thunder Twins to help." The girl stood up, sighed in a troubled tone, and turned to the door. At this moment, her cell phone rang. Without even looking, she answered the phone. "Mr. Beiji, it seems that the people you sent out are too incompetent." On the other side of the phone, the person who was about to speak paused, and then a bitter and vicissitudes of life voice accompanied by soft classical music sounded. "Yunchuan, just tell me what happened." Izir Qin, the owner of the room where you just sent people to install surveillance cameras this morning, has discovered the surveillance cameras and found the level 5 super electromagnetic cannon to help track down my location. If I'm not mistaken, they are almost in my room now, the girl said, and the trouble in her tone did not diminish at all. "Mr. Beiji, I think it's quite troublesome to help you check whether there are any omissions in the surveillance." "How did he find out?" The old man's voice came from the opposite side, and at the same time, there was the sound of fingers tapping on the table. "Who knows? The raw stones you are studying and actively protecting, that Sojita Junko is also, this Izir Qin is also, their ability information is different from that of ordinary Esper. Judging from Izir Qin's ability of clustered particle telekinesis, this raw stone who has just entered the Academy City for more than a month is quite proficient in controlling his ability." The girl called Kumikawa walked out of the room and walked towards the door. As she walked, she turned on the speakerphone on her mobile phone and said, "Telekinesis particles. It is possible that my junior brother has painted a picture with sand in his room, and the people you sent destroyed his painting. Is that so?" The old man's voice was a little weak. "The files obtained from his computer are only a few model files. We have also tested them here. Those models are just ordinary models, there is nothing special about them." "That's really a pity, Mr. Beiji. I think, instead of studying the other party's interest in becoming a game modeler or an animation modeler, you should spend time studying what his AIM stance is. Or wouldn't it be better to study that strange tower? Study why he can emit energy from that strange sand tower. That tower also has something strange. The surveillance footage from various places shows that after he condenses the tower, he can accurately find the target. It's just like a person with clairvoyance, right?" The girl stopped in front of the door and asked, "So, have you figured out anything?" "No. I guess he can expand his perception through the vibration of particulate matter. As for the tower itself, no matter what method is used to copy the sand tower, it will not have any effect. That is the other party's own ability, and the meaning of condensing the tower is unknown. Just like Sojita Junko, the nature of the ability is unknown, but it manifests multiple effects." "Forget it. I can handle the next thing, so that's it for now." After that, the girl hung up the phone, opened the door, and looked at the two people outside the door. "How about it? Are you acceptable to this explanation, little brother?" Chapter 70. Senior Sister's City Gate. "I see." Qin Ren looked at the mature girl with a faint smile on her face. "So, it was the people from the board of directors who installed surveillance cameras in my room, Senior." This person is also the mature character with curvy figure that Qin Ren likes. A senior from their school. Qin Ren was also impressed by this person. After all, Qin Ren likes her very much, whether it's her appearance or her setting. Among all the characters he likes, she is the second most important character after Shoka Misaki. Moreover, she and Shoka Misaki are childhood sweethearts who are old rivals who are like friends and enemies. Kumikawa Sariya, Kumikawa Maria's sister. She serves as the think tank of Kaizumi Tsutomu, one of the 12 directors of the Academy City General Council. She has no special abilities, and is not good at assassination or weapons. She relies purely on her speaking skills to dominate the dark brain. She is a master at manipulating people's hearts. She is similar to Shoka Misaki. Although she has no abilities, she uses various technologies to surpass the Shoka Queen in psychological warfare. In some ways, she is also a natural enemy. Previously, he had lost interest in Kumikawa Sariya because he thought that she might have changed her gender to become a man. So he didn't ask about her situation. He didn't expect to meet her at this time. And, in this way, however, after just a few words of conversation, he already understood that this curvaceous senior sister was definitely not a vase. But just like in the original setting, she had a brain that was called monster by Tsuta Mikado Motoharu. When he and Pouch arrived at the door, the other party turned on the speakerphone. Those words were also deliberately said by her as an explanation to him. Moreover, the letters G, R, O, U, P, that the other party intentionally or unintentionally twirled in the air with the ends of her hair. G, R, O, U, P, group, or group, the name of the Anbu organization he currently belongs to. Although he has not yet carried out any formal work, there is no doubt that he is now a member of the Anbu organization group, the group. And why didn't the other party make it clear? Qin Ren turned his head and glanced at Misaka Suekoto, who looked confused about the information leaked by Kumikawa Sariya using the speakerphone of her mobile phone. "Little brother, you should go back first." In this case, Pouch should not continue to participate, because with his presence, there are some topics that his senior sister probably won't say. The topic to talk about with this senior sister next is the darkness of Academy City. What? Misaka Suekoto never expected that Qin Ren would actually abandon the donkey after it has done its job. Qin Ren looked at him and thought for a while. "The next thing I want to talk to my senior sister about is entering the realm of adults." I said. "Don't treat me as at this time." Kumikawa Sariya walked to Qin Ren's side, hugged his arm in an intimate manner, and said to Misaka Suekoto, "The door to adults." Although the Misaka boy is actually still relatively pure, in this country with a developed sexual culture, he can still understand it under the influence of what he hears and sees, and immediately associates the adult realm mentioned by Qin Ren with another adult realm hinted by Kumikawa Sariya. I know." Two blushes appeared on the face of the immature boy, and he turned and left directly. Although his face was relatively calm, his somewhat flustered footsteps showed that he was not actually calm. Blinking his eyes, looking at Misaka Suekoto who walked into the elevator and went downstairs, Kumikawa Sariya turned his gaze away from Qin Ren with an expressionless face, and let go of his hand naturally. "Junior brother, don't get me wrong. The gate of the senior sister is already open to others." And this relaxed look and attitude is exactly the impression of Qin Ren that the monster senior sister who can compete with or even surpass the level 5 Shoka Misaki with words alone, and who dominates the darkness. Qin Ren certainly knows who her gate is open to. In the famous harem works, who else can the gate be opened to? Of course, the girl chasing Master Tma. What a sinful man, Master. But it doesn't matter. Qin Ren just likes the character, and he doesn't have any strange possessiveness. She's not really his wife. Looking at this girl who would never forget to show a fearless smile at any time, even when her eyes were dug out by Tsuta Mikado, he sighed a few words in his heart, and then said, "Do you need my assistance in research?" "Yes, assist in research. This was not a whim of his, nor was it a brainless operation, but the result of careful consideration. First of all, instead of waiting for others to take action on him, and trying to get all kinds of information from him without knowing it, it would be better to turn passive into active, take the initiative to assist in research, and understand what kind of results can be obtained by researching himself. Act based on the results. He has a game friend named Wu Yatu, who likes to play various strategy games. After winning, the other party often says, "Think from the worst result as the starting point." Well, normal people tend to have a fluke mentality of just in case it works, but although he can't do that, he still understands some in-depth thinking, waiting for others to research. If the other party finds out his weaknesses or loopholes, and he can know them, it would be great. For example, what if the top leaders of Academy City took a sample of his body one day and cloned countless clones like they cloned Misaka Mikoto? Qin Ren would never forget the blood of Shurima displayed in his system. Can his blood of Shurima be copied? Or, can his power be copied in various strange ways? He didn't know how many research methods from various science fiction novels in his previous life would appear in this city, and he couldn't guard against them. He needed a way to make himself feel at ease. He also needed a way to understand himself. And Kumo Kawaseria is really the same as the setting in the original book. A good person who is familiar with the darkness in Academy City, has been preventing tragedies that he can prevent, but also feels guilty for not being able to prevent those tragedies that cannot be prevented. The setting of Beiji Jaimin is also the same as in the original book. A person who is conducting research on raw stones and actively protecting all raw stones. Then, among the 12 directors in Academy City, they are his best choice. As for other top leaders, don't even think about it. It's completely okay to say that there are basically no good people in the top leaders of Academy City. In Qin Ren's impression, it seems that only Keiji Mitsutomu and Okafune Monaka can be regarded as good people in the board of directors. The others are basically the evil leaders. After hearing Qin Ren's words, Kumikawa Syria was a little surprised. She set up defenses in the room where she lived, discovered that she was being monitored at the first time, and found a third-level LV-5 railgun to track her back. No matter how you think about it, it won't be. No, wait, what if the other party had this purpose from the beginning? Kumikawa Syria narrowed her eyes and looked at this ghost junior who went to class according to his own preferences like her. I will contact Mr. Keiji Mitsutomu. Maybe you would rather talk to him in person. Chapter 71, The Dark Brain. In a corner of the 3rd School District, in a high-rise building, a huge office that occupies an entire floor, decorated with antique wood-colored paint, melodious and gentle classical music is echoing in this huge space. An old man is leaning back in a chair, looking at the blond man in front of the desk with an expressionless face and his hands in his pockets. I didn't expect that there would be a raw stone willing to cooperate with my research. Is it really okay? He has entered old age, and his voice is old and mature. He is not like another director, Aoi Uzi, who has used huge medical resources and connections to make his 70-year-old body from the inside out, even his bones and internal organs, become young like a 30-year-old, and his voice is so sweet that it makes people sick. As long as you don't plan to cut off my hands and feet and lock me in some closed culture tank, it doesn't matter if you want to make a clone of me. Qin Ren said indifferently. This sentence is true. He really has no aversion to being cloned. If he had any voluntary cloning experiments in his previous life, he really wanted to be a volunteer. Now, if he had to talk about his worry about cloning, it would be whether the clones obtained by cloning him would get his abilities. How strong would the abilities be? However, it was more like curiosity than worry. After all, even if it appeared, it would not matter. Even if cloning could allow the clones to gain the ability to control sand, the clones could not also clone a system, right? Moreover, after watching Tormajutsu no Index, Qin Ren actually had a good impression of clones. In summary, he was not only not worried about being cloned, but he actually wanted someone to clone him. Cut off your hands and feet and lock them in a culture tank. Junior, have you read too many dark comics for boys? Why? Hearing the first part of his words, Kumikawa Kinya couldn't help laughing, and when she heard the word clone at the end, her face sank slightly. and the smile disappeared from her face. Although the remaining smile was similar to usual, it was obvious that she was serious. How much do you know? According to her investigation, Izir should not have officially carried out the work of the Anbu. Recent nights, multiple people with the same appearance have appeared in some alleys at the same time. I don't think it can be explained by reasons like twins. Qin Ren's voice was indifferent. In fact, he had only seen one of Misaka's younger brothers. It was the boy he saw last night when he went to search for bad guys to collect 100 yellow sand gold coins. He thought it was Misaka Suakoto. He didn't recognize him at the time, and only after returning to the dormitory did he remember that the Misaka he saw at that time had no bandages on his hands, and when he saw Pouch coming out of the hospital, there was a wound on his arm and it was bandaged. After thinking carefully, he understood. In other words, the absolute power user plan has been transferred from indoors to outdoors at some point. That is the absolute power user evolution plan, which creates the ultimate pursuit of comprehending the will of God with a non-God body in Academy City, and it involves many high-level people. Even I can stop it. While talking in a calm tone, Jaimin looked up at Qin Ren. Although Qin Ren was not as smart as Kumakawa Seria, who could be called a monster, he could understand the hint in Beiji Jaimin's words, which was so obvious that it couldn't be more obvious. In the end, Beiji Jaimin was advising him not to care about these things, otherwise even this director couldn't save him. I understand. If it weren't for the help from Brother Pao this time, he might not have helped. After all, he knew very well that according to the big bald man's plan, the absolute power plan was just one of several layers of disguises. The mass production of superpowers by cloning Sister Pao with somatic cells was the first layer of disguise. The absolute power evolution plan that appeared after the mass production of superpowers was abandoned was the second layer of disguise. This matter will definitely be resolved. The absolute power plan will definitely fail, and the cloned Misakas will definitely be saved. The only difference is how many cloned Misakas survived. If it weren't for this incident, he would definitely stand by and wait for the incident to be resolved. And now, save as many as you can. Just consider it as the reward for Brother Pao's help this time. Yeah. Jaimin nodded. I'll contact you again after I prepare the laboratory. Looking at Qin Ren with an expressionless face, he continued, don't worry. The experiments are basically for testing, and some special experiments will also ask for your opinion. According to what the other party said just now, as long as the experimental method is not too extreme, the other party will accept it. And he originally did not intend to conduct any destructive experiments on the original stone ability user. After continuing to chat about some minor details about the experimental method, Qin Ren left. Looking at Kumo Kawakanya, who returned again after sending Qin Ren away, Jaimin tapped his fingers on the table, and with the sound of tap, 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 his old and steady voice sounded. Do you think he will stop the absolute ability user plan after knowing it? He will definitely take action. Kumo Kawakanya maintained a fearless smile on his face. The dark brain of this psychic, who could rival the top psychic users with words, after a slight pause, continued. From his usual actions, we can see that although my junior brother mainly thinks rationally, he occasionally thinks emotionally. After knowing the absolute psychic plan, he will definitely take some intervention actions while ensuring his own safety, but it is unlikely that he will confront Accelerator head-on. Besides, he has no chance of winning. Accelerator can change the direction of all forces. Currently, only the second person has the possibility of defeating Accelerator by confronting him head-on. The others. A girl's voice and smile flashed through his mind, and she continued, the chances of winning are too low. It's terrible to be thoroughly analyzed by a monster like you. The old man sighed. Fortunately, you are on my side. Even if it's a monster, you raised it. Kumo Kawakanya pulled a smile at the corner of her mouth. Right, Mr. Beiji? After saying that, she turned her head. Besides, I don't fully understand his character. Oh, is that why he wanders around and is a bad boy? This conflicts with his character. Interests? There was a hint of confusion in Kumakawa Seria's eyes. Chapter 72. I really didn't want to chat up. On the bus from the 3rd school district back to the 7th school district, Qin Ren couldn't help but think about the series of events that had just happened. He had only been in Academy City for more than a month, less than 2 months, and he had become a research target without knowing it. Moreover, it seemed that KG Jaimin had collected a lot of information about him. His identity as a rough stone was more noticeable than he had imagined. Fortunately, the person who paid attention to him was KG Jaimin, a director who could be classified as friendly, rather than someone like Yakumi Hisako. And he was also very happy to be able to contact Kumo Kawasiri. However, it was really amazing, the dark brain and so on, compared with the power of Shoka Misaki, who could directly invade other people's brains to read and even control their thoughts. Kumo Kawasiri's situation was more acceptable to him because of her good brain. At least he could contact her with confidence. The setting of the Shoka Queen, who would use her ability to thoroughly understand the memory and thinking of her collaborators and even modify some unsatisfactory parts, was really difficult to contact. He didn't want to be invaded in the field of memory and thinking. It was a pity that he could not get in touch with the Queen of Bishokudo. But the appearance of Kumo Kawasiri made up for it. At this moment, Qin Ren, who walked to the exit after getting on the bus, fell on a seat next to him. A girl who looked about 16 or 17 years old, wearing a white coat, with dark purple slightly curly long hair scattered from her head, and it was unknown how long it had been since she had been carefully groomed. As if noticing his gaze, the girl who was looking out the window turned her head and met his gaze. A pair of eyes without divine light. At first glance, it was nothing, but if you stare at it for a little longer, you can find that the pupils inside did not expand or shrink at all, just like a dead fish, which makes people feel a little creepy. It looks a little familiar. It should be a character that appeared in Magical Index or a certain scientific railgun. Who is it? There are really many characters in this white coat and Magical Index, and this world has all kinds of random turns that he doesn't understand the rules of. This dead fish-eyed girl in a white coat may be a man in a white coat in the original work. Wearing a white coat, there are more people from the Anbu, Kihara clan. That old man Kihara Gensai, or Kihara Sudo, Kihara Ransaku? It seems that none of them are. Could it be Aoyao or something like that? Wait, Aoyao? Absolute Esper Project. Futsuki Toshin? Qin Ren thought about it and finally thought of Futsuki Toshin. Futsuki Toshin, a senior high school student with a long-sleeved shirt. He has the habit of mixing English conjunctions in his words. Then he shifted his side to the clothes under the other person's white coat. Because the buttons were buttoned from bottom to top to the chest, he couldn't see if the other person was wearing a school uniform with a long-sleeved shirt. At this time, the other person said, "In fact, no matter how you look, you can't see inside, unless you are an Esper with the ability of perspective." The English word that served as a conjunction was uttered from her mouth as the beginning sound. In Qin Ren's ears, just like the situation when he heard Steele chanting the spell in Chinese before. The other person spoke fluent Chinese. Qin Ren's impression of Fuzuki Toshin is that he is like the Hong Kong people in the 1980s and 1990s, who like to mix a few English words when speaking. At the moment, he cannot tell from the accent whether the other party is Fuzuki Toshin. However, it seems that the other party thinks he is a pervert. How is it possible? If he is not a big sister with curvy figure, he will not be attracted. At least she should have a C cup to arouse his interest. He silently took out the discipline committee armband from his pocket, put it on his arm, ignored the other party's perverted questioning, and then said to her, "Are you a student of Qingdian Shanghai?" "Indeed, I am a student of Qingdian Shanghai Women's High School." The girl's dead fish eyes did not change at all. She looked down at her chest and unbuttoned a button, revealing a dark blue school uniform with a white collar. "So, discipline committee member, do you want to judge by my school uniform?" "Yes, there is also a student from Qingdian Shanghai Women's School in our branch," Qin Ren responded, maintaining his active expression, and the two expressionless faces looked at each other, which felt like robots looking at each other. The other people around her originally thought Qin Ren was a pervert because of her first sentence. But after Qin Ren put on the discipline committee armband and continued the conversation, the others retracted their gazes. "Can I tell you your name?" Qin Ren wanted to confirm whether she was Fuzuki Toshin. "However, why did you ask my name? Is this what you call flirting?" The girl asked with no expression on her face, speechless. It seems that this is flirting, right? How to answer? Do you think you are a criminal? Qin Ren had no idea how to answer, just asking. At this time, his cell phone rang. He picked up the phone and heard the clear voice of Hatsuharu Shiri. Senior Izir, please come to branch 177 as soon as possible. There is an emergency. I know, Qin Ren responded and got off the bus directly. The route of this bus was to his dormitory, and branch 177 was in another direction. Compared with taking the bus, it was faster for him to move by himself. Branch 177. Hatsuharu Shiri was typing on the keyboard at an amazing speed, causing a large amount of information to appear on the computer screen. Shirai Kurachi stood aside, frowning. The information sent from the headquarters said that this incident was caused by some ability users who were temporarily unable to discipline themselves, so their abilities were unconsciously out of control, causing the AIM diffusion force field of other ability users of the same type to resonate, thus causing the phenomenon. In other words, if the source of the loss of control is me, will the Kuroko with the same ability as me be affected? That's right. Now we have to find the source of the AIM force field resonance. Hatsuharu Shiri bit his popsicle and made an unclear sound. Our 177th branch has been asked to go out in full force and increase the number of patrols. Kufachiwai next to him said, that's it, Shirai Sr. You patrol from this side to this side. I understand. After Shirai Kurachi wrote down the patrol route, he used his ability in an instant and disappeared from the spot. After watching Shirai Kuritomo disappear, Hatsuharu Shiri took a bite of his popsicle and chewed the ice. Senior Gufa, now all the people in our 177th branch have been mobilized. The impact of this random opening incident is really huge. There is no way, if the impact is allowed to spread, the entire Academy City will be destroyed by the earthquake. The space elevator Endymion may be the most affected by the earthquake. The president of the construction company Trails in the Stargate, Letley DeGrod, has repeatedly asked Academy City to solve the problem. Kufachiwai had a helpless look on his face. That Laligoth president? If the space elevator that was about to be completed has an accident because of this, it will be a big deal. Hatsuharu Shiri had a gloating smile on his face. When Qin Ren opened the door of the 177th branch, he happened to see Hatsuharu Shiri showing a gloating smile. Chuck-hun, you have changed. You are no longer the pure and kind girl who played cat and cat punches after Lei Yi lifted her skirt. I wonder if you will play cat and cat punches after Lei Yi stripped your pants. Some philosophical scenes emerged in Qin Ren's mind, and he shuddered all over. Chapter 73 Sister, be careful, please recommend. Random opening, I understand. After listening to the explanations of Hatsuharu Shiri and Kufachiwai, it seems that random opening. This seems to be the original plot of the animation production team. In this, the brainless operation arranged by the animation team for Hatsuharu made her lose a lot of fans. But now, looking at his relaxed look, it seems that he doesn't know the person Harajujinyu. Where did his butterfly wings blow Harajujinyu to? Qin Ren himself had no idea. Then I'll go on patrol. Waving his hand, Qin Ren walked out of the branch. Standing at the entrance of the branch, he raised his hand and was about to condense the desert dragon lizard. Just as he began to condense the desert dragon lizard, he saw Kachiki Maru waving his hand and running towards him quickly. Mr. Izir, seeing that the other party was running towards him, with no intention of stopping running, Qin Ren also forgot to stop condensing. The quicksand on the ground surged according to his will, and condensed with the roar of the wind and sand, and a huge desert dragon lizard stood up from the ground under Kachiki Maru's feet. Kachiki Maru screamed, and after a backward roll, she landed on the horn of the desert dragon lizard in the posture of a balance beam athlete walking on a single plank bridge, maintaining the posture commonly known as the golden rooster stand. Awesome, Qin Ren couldn't help but applaud. Hey, seen Qin Ren applauding, the dog-type girl couldn't help but laugh a few times, but because she was distracted, her feet were unstable, her body lost its center of gravity, and she sat down. Qin Ren quickly removed the horn of the desert dragon lizard and condensed the yellow sand on its head to form a plane. Kachiki Maru sat on the plane with her butt. Girl, be careful, If you really fall down just now, you will turn from a girl into a woman." The palm of his hand grasped into a claw, and the yellow sand condensed into a claw shape with his will, lifting Kachiki Maru and sending her in front of him. "Oh, so awesome!" Qin Ren's loyal fangirl exclaimed. "Be careful next time." Qin Ren looked at her and reached out to rub her head. "Don't worry, Mr. Izir, this was just an accident." Kachiki Maru, who is one of the few people in reality who can improve her favorability by patting her head, straightened her back and guaranteed, "No matter how hard you try, you still don't have the plan, little girl." Looking at this girl with pity, Qin Ren then asked, "Are you done with your patrol?" "No," Kachiki Maru answered with full energy. "I'm late." "You're so confident even though you're late." Gufa Chiwai walked out of the branch and sighed. "Senior Gufa, it stands to reason that it's summer vacation and it's the weekend, so I should have the right to rest." Kachiki Maru didn't show any fear, but was complacent, "And the discipline committee is a volunteer system, so even if I'm late, I don't need to apologize at all." Gufa Chiwai covered his forehead helplessly. "I give up." He really had nothing to say to Kachiki Maru, who had memorized all the rules and regulations. Okay. Hatsuharu leaned out of the upstairs window and leaned on the window and said, "Kachiki? Your patrol route is?" "I'm patrolling with Mr. Izir." Kachiki Maru didn't listen to what he said. She ran back in 3 or 2 steps and flexibly climbed onto the back of the desert dragon lizard. Qin Ren, who had never expected the other party to do this, completely forgot to control the desert dragon lizard to react. Looking at Kachiki Maru, who was as excited as a child, Qin Ren sighed helplessly in his heart. On his face, he kept an expressionless state, controlled the desert dragon lizard to walk in front of him, and then automatically lowered his head to him. Qin Ren, who felt the accelerated recovery of his mana and estimated his momentum, stepped on the head of the desert dragon lizard with his hands in his pockets and stood on it. After he stood firm, the desert dragon lizard raised its head and turned around and left. "Oh, so awesome!" The praise from Kachiki Maru from behind made Qin Ren feel inexplicably embarrassed. He couldn't help but let the desert dragon lizard speed up. Only Hatsuharu Shiri and Gufa Chiwai were left staring at each other in a strange look, and they were speechless. The two people, one sitting and the other standing on the back of the desert dragon lizard, started talking. "Milu, you have heard about the chaotic opening incident, right?" "Yeah." Kachiki Maru nodded twice. "It was caused by the simultaneous outbreak of RSPK syndrome among a large number of people with special abilities, right?" "How can the ability be out of control in order to resonate with the AIM diffusion field of other people with the same ability?" As she spoke, she asked a question. "How would I know this? I am a complete layman about these things about abilities. Apart from being familiar with the plot, I don't know anything else." Qin Ren was a little speechless. Even if he grabbed a student from the street, he would know more about superpowers than him. Moreover, he didn't need to learn the knowledge himself. After all, his strength and superpowers were not in the same system at all. It would be faster and more convenient to get stronger power from the system. Although he had thought about whether he could develop superpowers in Academy City, he was worried that his power would be affected if he could not use magic after developing superpowers, so he simply stopped going to class. And because he was judged as a rough stone, no one cared about his skipping classes. Due to multiple reasons, his understanding of superpowers was still half understood. At this time, he could only rely on the plot he knew. Since it is related to the AIM force field, it is not something we can control. We have no way to observe the AIM force field directly. We need special equipment from Academy City, or a person with the ability to detect and track the AIM force field, right? Qin Ren's mind emerged with Taketsubo Raiko from the Anbu. Item, props. There should be people with similar abilities in Academy City, right? Even Accelerator's ability. There are several in Academy City. There should be other people with abilities who can detect the AIM force field or interfere with the AIM force field, right? But she is the only one who appeared in the original work. People who can detect and track AIM force fields should be very rare, right? Kachiki Maru, who was sitting on the back of the desert dragon lizard and swaying like a child in a bumper car, said, "There is not even one in our school." "None." "I envy her for having such a good memory." Hearing her words, Qin Ren couldn't help but think of her ability and felt envious. It would be great if he could remember the detailed plot. At this moment, a strong tremor came. Chapter 74 Patient Recruitment. Interested parties please contact. Qin Ren, who knew the plot of the animation, knew very well who caused the chaotic opening incident and who should be found to solve the incident. However, judging from Hatsuharu Shiri's reaction just now, it seems that he does not know Harukami Jinyi, one of the key figures in the incident. Anyway, let's go to Dr. Frog's hospital first. However, we can't go directly there, because the patrol route is far away from Dr. Frog's hospital. What reason should we use? Someone is injured? Who should we use? Qin Ren turned his head and glanced at his little fangirl, but he was not so crazy as to deliberately hurt her and then go to the hospital with this reason. By the way, since it was an earthquake, someone must have been injured. After feeling the vibration around him, Qin Ren said expressionlessly, "Milu, sit tight." "Oh, okay." Kachiki Miru nodded repeatedly, then stretched out her hand and hurriedly grabbed the stone-like protrusion on the back of the desert dragon lizard. Qin Ren saw her action, and his mind moved, and the quicksand surged to form a spine. Seeing the spine, Kachiki Miru immediately reached out and hugged the spine. Although it was not very elegant, and Qin Ren, countless quicksands poured into his clothes and shoes, maintaining his body, not to mention the wild running of the desert dragon lizard. In this state, he could fly directly relying on the quicksand without any problem, and there would be no imbalance at all. After confirming that Kachiki Miru was holding it firmly, Qin Ren controlled the desert dragon lizard to run. Then, the people who were emotionally unstable due to the earthquake caused by the chaotic opening saw a huge, ferocious-looking large lizard running wildly on the street at a speed of 70 km per hour, and Qin Ren and Kachiki Miru on its head and back were naturally noticed. What kind of monster is that? A robot? No, it might be a biological weapon developed by the Research Institute of Academy City. It's running wild. This earthquake was caused by it. Two boys who looked like they were in the second and third grades of junior high school looked at the desert dragon lizard running all the way and began to talk about urban legends in a second-year manner. At the same time, in a university hospital in the 7th school district, "Well, today's examination is over. You can go through the discharge procedures in 2 days." The frog-faced doctor, Ming Tuzui-hun, took off the stethoscope from his ear. Although the primitive medical equipment is not sophisticated enough, it is convenient enough. It can't be completely eliminated. "No, doctor, can I go through the discharge procedures today?" The hedgehog-headed girl scratched her head with her left hand and said with a dry laugh, "Yes, but why are you in such a hurry?" Ming Tuzui-hun looked puzzled. "The hospitalization fee is too expensive." Kamijimaki looked bitter. "What a good reason." Ming Tuzui-hun blinked in surprise, then stood up. "It's okay for you to be discharged. You can go home and rest well." Ming Tuzui-hun agreed with her approach, then stood up from the chair, turned around and left the ward, and the female nurse behind him also left the ward. But after leaving the ward, he and the female nurse separated. "Doctor, where are you going?" "I'm going back to my office and visiting other patients by the way." Ming Tuzui-hun waved his hand without looking back. The female nurse didn't care much. After all, she knew that the other party had the habit of chatting with recovered patients. The third patient hospitalization building. Ming Tuzui-hun came to his office, and then passed through the side door and entered a room next to it that was closed with a roller shutter door and looked like a sundries warehouse. In the bright room, dozens of medical devices that looked like coffins and similar to X-ray detectors were placed in the room. A boy or girl was lying in each medical device. In the room, a weak boy and a man with a tired and lazy face were standing in the room. Seeing the door open and Dr. Frog walking in, both of them cast their eyes over. "Doctor, are you done with your work?" "Doctors are never busy." Ming Tuzui-hun took out his hands from the pockets of his white coat, walked to the nearest medical device, and looked at the boy inside. Sure enough, although you calculated a lot of results through the brain network of the fantasy hand, the most critical part is still missing. If there is no initial sample, their AIM force field will still go out of control and they still cannot be awakened. "So, can we only watch them sleep here?" The weak boy clenched his fists, bit his lips and looked at a boy lying in the medical device next to him. It's not impossible to wake them up by force, but the consequences are more serious. The underworld soul chaser glanced at the weak boy and said, "I remember your name is." "My name is Harukami Kenichi, doctor." Knowing that the treatment of his friends was only possible because of the efforts of Mr. Kama and this doctor, the boy responded with gratitude. Then, "Harukami, you can hear the voice of one of the boys, right?" The underworld soul chaser nodded and asked. "Yes." Harukami Kenichi nodded. "My ability is level 2, telepathy. Originally, I can only receive information of a specific wavelength, but," as he said, he cast his eyes on a boy lying in the medical device. Edasaki Atari. His ability is level 2 telepathy, which allows him to send messages to others through telepathy. The two of them complement each other's abilities. Kama Junsai beside him sighed and replied, "Itari and I often communicate with each other through our abilities. Recently, I suddenly heard the voice of Itari, who I hadn't contacted for a long time." Harukami Kenichi lowered his head and clenched his fists. "When we tried to wake them up a few times, Edasaki should have regained some consciousness. It was at that time that he unconsciously sent a message for help to Harukami." Kama Junsai leaned against the wall, fatigue deeply imprinted on his face. "Yeah, but Banley's request for help was also unclear, like he was talking in his sleep." Looking at the two of them, Mingtuzuhan couldn't help but scratch his Mediterranean Sea. "The data you calculated, Kama, is very correct, but without the initial sample, it still won't work. We can't eliminate the out-of-control situation of the AIM force field. As far as I know, the ability body crystals should not cause chaotic opening, but I have no idea how far Kihara Jensai's experiment has gone." Kama Junsai continued, with a hint of despair in his tone. "Kihara Jensai, he has lost contact for a long time, and no one knows where he has gone. I have also been to the Advanced Education Bureau, and there is no information left there." Chapter 75. Actually the second one is a muscular man, forgot the timer. On the other side, Qin Ren, who was riding the desert dragon lizard on the road, did not see any injured people along the way, because all the discipline committee members were out patrolling and the security guards were in action, so he did not see even one injured person. There was no reason for him to approach the hospital. At this time, he remembered the idea that had come to his mind not long ago. If there are no injuries, create them. Of course, he was not going to attack Uchikimaru madly, but to. Qin Ren's eyes swept around, and then he found the ugliest man. The other party was sitting on a bench eating melon seeds. The vibration just now seemed to have no effect on him at all. "Sorry, brother, you just get hurt." "Don't worry, I will try to be gentle." Qin Ren's mind moved, and he suppressed the guilt of attacking a stranger to the deepest part of his heart, and controlled the desert dragon lizard to stop. The next moment, the quicksand was moving, and it was about to overturn the pitiful-looking man to the ground and make him faint. However, at this moment, a blue electric light appeared in the alley next to him. In the alley, a white-haired boy, whose gender was difficult to identify, stared at the person in front of him with his red pupils. The shiny black shoes kicked the military night vision goggles on the ground. The night vision goggles drew a straight line and flew towards the person a few meters away at a speed that was completely different from an ordinary kick. "Because the experiment has been decided to be temporarily suspended," Misaka 9666 explained without hesitation. A boy who was dressed very similar to Misaka Suekoto said expressionlessly, "So, why should it be temporarily suspended?" The white-haired boy said impatiently. At this time, a female voice sounded, "Because someone is approaching." "Is this also the pinnacle of Academy City Level 5? Misaka 10086 was a little confused and began to question Accelerator's ability. A girl with shoulder-length brown hair, wearing a short-sleeved shirt and a sleeveless sweater, spoke in a similar tone. They must be concentrating on the experiment, so they ignored the things around them. Misaka 9999 tried to speculate. A young man who looked about 17 or 18 years old and looked like a larger version of Misaka Suekoto said, I know, don't talk in a row, it's disgusting." Accelerator looked at their completely expressionless faces with disgust. Why are you all cloned from the third person's genes? But look different. Correction. The genetic map of the Misaka numbered before 10,000 comes from the older male individual of the third lightning twins, and the genetic map of the Misaka numbered after 10,000 comes from the younger female individual of the lightning twins. Misaka 9666 carefully corrected the mistakes in Accelerator's language. The young Misaka said, because of the Misaka's ability, defective electricity, the electric current interfered with the genes during the cloning process, causing frequent gene mutations. Almost every Misaka has mutated and looks different. Misakas with the same developmental status as the original are rare individuals. The normal 20 chromosomes have mutated, and many super female individuals with 30 chromosomes have appeared. There are also single X chromosome individuals and double X chromosome individuals, Misakas who have grown into female appearances. Misaka 10086 repeated the explanation given to her by the researcher to Accelerator. The young girl Misaka explained, among the individuals numbered 10,000 20,000 there are 852 individuals whose development level is close to that of a 30-year-old adult female. There are 1,648 individuals whose development level is close to that of a 25-year-old adult female. There are 3,764 individuals whose development level is close to that of a 20-year-old adult female. There are 2,548 small young individuals whose development level is 10 years old or younger. There are only 1,107 individuals whose development level is close to that of the original. Misaka 10086 explained to Accelerator seriously. The girl Misaka said expressionlessly, during the replication process, there were also deformed Misakas with multiple hands and heads, and even monkey-like, atavistic beast-like shapes. However, when the embryos grew to normal size for about 4 weeks, they were dealt with when they were discovered. What a pity. Misaka concealed her plan to establish a Misaka illustrated book. By the way, during the process of the electric current carrying itself interfering with the cloning, some male individuals appeared in the last 10,000, but the number of cases was not as large as that of the first 10,000. I didn't expect such a simple reasoning, and Accelerator didn't even think of it. Is this also the pinnacle of Academy City? Misaka 9666 was a little puzzled, and concealed the fact that she didn't know it at the beginning. The boyish Misaka said in a chain. Ah, I told you, don't talk in a chain. It's disgusting. Accelerator raised his left leg and stepped hard on the ground. The power was transmitted on the ground, tearing the ground of the entire alley apart. It was like a crack caused by an earthquake. Please stop your attack. This is not in the plan. It may cause errors in the planning process and require the reapplication of the tree diagram designer for recalculation. Misaka 9999 warned. Misaka, in the form of a young man, said, reapplication of the tree diagram designer for calculation and rearrangement of the plan will cause a significant increase in costs. Misaka 10086 tried to explain it in a more understandable way. Misaka, in the form of a girl, nodded. It's disgusting, disgusting. Accelerator showed a look of disgust and turned away directly. Notify me when you decide to change the experimental location. It's so annoying. Accelerator complained as he left the alley. At this moment, Qin Ren, who was sitting on the back of the desert dragon lizard and establishing a sun disk diffusion vision, widened his eyes. What's going on? The people standing with Accelerator, although most of them look different, there are men and women, but the one who looks exactly like Pouch is Misaka's younger brother, who is the big Pouch who looks the same as Pouch, but a little different. That woman looks a bit like Pao Niang. Like Pao Niang apostrophe s. Misaka sister. Fuck, what's going on? Pao Niang and Pao Niang were both cloned? Qin Ren's mind was very confused, and the scene he saw through the sun disk shocked him. He was a little confused. Is this world the magical index that he knows? Mr. Izir, what's wrong with you? Although Qin Ren had no expression on his face, those who had memorized Qin Ren's facial expressions and demeanor as long-term memories could easily tell that Qin Ren was in shock. just like the expression he showed when he heard that the second in the school was actually a muscular man who liked fitness last time. Although it is a little hard to accept that the second in the school is a muscular man, it shouldn't be that shocking, right? But what's going on this time? Does it have anything to do with Mr. Izir making this disc that looks like magnetic levitation? Kachiki Meyer thought with some confusion. Thanks to the book friend for the reward of 100 starting coins. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.